Going live, going live. We're live. Hello, everybody. Hello, internet. Hello, everyone that's in the chat already. There's, according to YouTube, there's a massive 12 people.
Hey,
I've got such a popular show.
They'll come flocking in their tens eventually, Roland.
Yeah. Dear. Okay, so I'm streaming from the ATEM. Let us know if the audio's good. We're going to start with Robbie.
Yep, all good here.
Okay. Andrew?
Yes, hello everybody. Hope we're all doing okay.
You probably need to get a bit more
Picking up all
intimate, bit more intimate with your mic again.
No, this bloody mic. If I get any more intimate, I'll be kissing the bloody thing.
Well, most radio people that have that
Hello,
sort of mic.
everybody.
Hey, look at that. Beautiful.
Welcome to the Barry White Show.
Okay.
Love. I'll just have to shout.
Guys in the chat room, please let us know if the video is coming through clear and if you're hearing everyone clear. We just did a test. Darren, your audio. What's your audio like, Darren?
It's big and loud, I think.
Big and bald.
Loud.
Okay, now it says it's dropped. No, it's back. It says it's back.
I'm dropping out. No, it's dropped at my end. No, it's back. I don't know what it's doing.
High, not high. Okay. Tell me if it's back, because it's saying it's back. Okay, good. All right, let's just hope we don't have any more dramas. Right. We'll start with opening beers. I think this is a twist top. I've had this before, this one. This is the single fin summer ale. And I've bought like a massive amount of these. So, no, it's not a twist top. Okay. All right, I'm going to have to open that later. Instead, I will go. I will go with the Colonial Draft. There we go. Pour your beers, boys and ladies and girls, and.
I'm on the orange squash, I'm afraid. I'm on the wagon for the month.
Hey, same here. Same here, Robert.
Oh,
Yeah.
very honourable of you.
There we
It's
go.
become slightly
happy
tradition
about
to
it.
open a beer on a Saturday afternoon now.
Let's just have a nice look at the colouring of that. Isn't that beautiful, eh? Okay. It looks like the stream's going okay. Now, if you're new here, we like to do stupid things like drink beer. But we don't. We drink sensibly. What can I say? Sorry, Mike. Okay, here we go. Now, if you are watching and you're thinking, what the hell are these guys doing? This is the pre-show. The pre-show.
Buffering again.
Buffering again?
A lot of people are saying it's buffering. Yeah, dropouts. As I was getting dropouts. What's going on here? Yeah.
Days like those.
I actually haven't had a problem before, so let's see how we go. We should be getting a picture now.
Nope. There we go.
It says we are.
There you go.
Okay, good. I just restarted the ATEM. That's one of the cool things about this is if you do get problems, you don't have to restart your computer. How's that? Just restart the little black box. All right, let's see how that goes for a bit.
Working. Oh no, it's buffering again.
It's not. It's not happy. Not happy, Jan.
It's dropped out. Oh wait.
Mega dropouts. Everyone's saying. I'm just going to try and stream using my other internet and see if that makes any difference. But the only problem is I can hear myself. Okie dokies. We are back using a different internet connection. There is another internet, apparently. I've got 2 internet connections here, and one of them was not happy, Jan. And I can't run the show listening to myself. This is going to be terrible. Why can I hear myself? Why? Why? Where is it coming from? One. Oh no, this is going to be a nightmare.
Are we all having sort of technical issues?
One. No, I can hear myself somewhere, and I don't know where it's coming from. And it could be because I turned something off. Ah, dear me. All right, I'm just going to have to persevere. I'm going to probably end up sounding slow because I have to try and work out which is actually my live voice and which is the echo. Anyway.
You haven't got the YouTube feed running somewhere unmuted?
No, it's muted. Yeah,
yeah,
YouTube's muted. It's got to be
ASIO's
a camera, maybe.
Yeah, ASIO's just extremely stable for now.
Yeah, I'm using a different internet connection, so it should be okay. The only problem is it's the slower internet connection. It's the one where the camera feeds come through, which means that I'm not going to get perfect video, and that's going to really suck because, yeah, I wanted better video from you guys. I'm going to find out.
But the thing is, you're getting video.
Yeah. Where is that?
Yeah.
Coming from? One.
Who needs to see us properly anyway? You only have to hear us.
No, it's just really hard for me to listen to myself through this, and I'm trying to work out where it's coming from.
Do you get a bit of delay on it, Rans?
Yeah, it's like
come back to you a little bit. Yeah, so you get
very slight, but it will make me slow my speech down because I'm trying to work out what's actually my live voice and what's not. But I'll just persevere. Anyway, sorry about that, people. We had a few technical issues, but that's why we do the pre-show. And because we do the pre-show, I don't... Oh, actually, I might have a solution for this audio problem. This might cause me to be a Dalek. Again.
Mute yourself.
One, 2, 3. There we go. How's that now?
Oh. Yep.
Right, now I can't hear you guys. Give me a sec.
I can hear you.
Give me a sec. There we go. Now I can't hear myself. Yay! All right. Now I can hear myself. Good. And you guys can hear me? Good. All right. Sorry, the technical issue is
what?
My second internet.
Runs.
Oh,
is that alien?
Dalek.
That was...
What about now?
Yeah, that's good.
Yes. Yeah, got you.
Now that's what that is an audio interface changing inside vMix. It's going, vMix is going, and it's just trying to catch up to whatever the digital stream is coming from. And that's probably why you're hearing it like a sick vocal, yeah. It would have sounded awesome. But it's okay now, right? Good. And the good thing about it is I can now listen to myself without sounding like I am slow. Now I'm twice the speed. Thanks, Inky. That actually probably be a good thing. I've had some people tell me that my videos I'm a bit slow. So, all right. I think we'll just leave it at this, and we'll just stream through the one internet and just cross our fingers and hope that everything's good. And
it's worked in the past.
And if the kids upstairs decide to watch YouTube while I'm streaming, we're screwed. Anyway, it's a professional outfit. So if you've come here thinking this is a professional outfit, sorry to disappoint you. So where were we? We are going to start the show in about 2 minutes. This is the pre-show. This is why we do pre-shows, because it gives us 15 minutes to fix problems. And there you go. We needed it. So hopefully it stays good for the rest of the streams. It's good to have a few people in the chat as well. I'll say good day to you once the actual main show starts. It says that I've got 16 people according to YouTube. I don't know how accurate that is. Robbie, do you ever get that? Do you ever look at the concurrent viewer thing when you're streaming?
I try not to. I try and concentrate on what I'm actually doing, switching between cameras and guests. But every now and again, I sort of come across videos and think, oh, is that how many we're viewing? Is that how many we've had? What is? I don't know. I
actually don't know, because it says 29. And then it says 17. I can't work out which one's which. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's only 17, knowing my popularity. Okay, so don't be too worried. No, here we go. I've got another error message coming up. God's sake. All right, let's just persevere. Guys in the chat, just be on the ball and let us know. Yeah. Okay, so 17 is correct. I think it's 16 now, so someone's left in disgust. Oh no, back to 17. 81! No, I don't think so. Okay. What we're going to do now
the numbers.
Is we're going to hit a button. Everyone's going to be muted, and you're going to see a little bit of a graphic for a second. Here we go. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to another Saturday. And I love how fast Saturdays come around. It just seems to get faster and faster every week, and it's quite bizarre, but here we are again. And unfortunately for you, you're actually looking at my ugly face, but don't worry, you don't have to stare at it all show. We've also got some other cool people here, and we'll probably start by saying hello to everybody. Who we got a special guest today. We got Robbie. Nice to have you in, Robbie. And I think you're on this button. Is it this button? Yes.
Yes, I felt that.
Yay.
Hello.
How's your week been?
Yeah, not bad actually. Just usual day job stuff. Finishing up some podcast edits for Sound on Sound. So hopefully more of those out fairly soon. And buying stuff that I didn't expect to be buying gear. So that was fun.
Yeah, I saw some of your posts on social media, so we'll definitely be having a chat about that stuff. Absolutely. And also, Robbie's here as a semi-regular person, but he's going to help us out with some DX7 questions. So you're happy to field some of those, Robbie, a bit later on?
I'll try.
All right, fantastic. All right, who else have we got? We should have an Andrew here. How's your week been, Andrew?
Hello, everybody. Well, very different, because we're back at work. Back at the chalk face, standing in front of classes of children, and it's been weird, but actually really lovely at the same time. So it's been actually a very nice week. I've enjoyed it, but it has been like a proper working week for the first time in ages. So getting back to some semblance of normality, even though school itself is very, very different to how it was before. I guess we'll have to just get used to a new normal, as the saying goes. But yeah, it's been a nice week.
A new normal. That's a great term. Fantastic. Awesome. Yeah. We're also going to say hello to Darren.
It wasn't mine. Somebody else coined that.
How you going, Darren? How's your week been?
Yeah, not bad. Okay.
Nothing major, really. Just playing about with some FM.
Oh, some FM. Well, it's timely, I think. Point above your head, because that's where the FM is, isn't it? Yeah.
Where are we? Yeah, there.
There.
Too high?
Yeah, a bit lower.
There.
Bit lower. Yeah, there. There it is.
Yeah.
So we'll probably...
Yeah.
I don't know if you've got that connected up. We'll probably have there it is. We'll probably have a listen to that a bit later. Because it's definitely DX-ish. So nobody can complain about that. And obviously, if you're here and you are thinking to yourself, well, I've come here to watch about DX7, we are going to get to it. But I actually want to handcuff you to your chair right now and entrap you with some normal, regular segments that we're going to do. And we'll start off with hopefully something that may make you laugh. Let's roll a stinger for that. Yes, FunnySide, where stranger things apparently happen. I've never actually seen it though, so if you do see something strange happen, please let me know. But apparently at the end of the internet, you actually see these things called memes, and don't ask me where I get these from because it's just embarrassing. Probably like this one, recording MIDI after coming home from the club. That's pretty much the MIDI track there.
Have you tried applying that into a key roll?
I think that might be interesting. You've got some longer notes and some shorter notes there, haven't you? Anyway, moving right along.
That's a machine gun snare at the top there, isn't there?
Yeah. I actually wouldn't mind a guy like that helping me out when I'm doing tracks too, just standing on the screen. A bit like the paperclip guy, Do you remember him from Word?
Oh, God.
All right, let's keep going. What else do we have? Oh, yes. Now, this one I thought, did this meme, was this aimed at me from last week's? Because we were looking at this, weren't we? Or a couple of weeks ago. Yes.
Oh, that's funny.
This is what happens when you take things seriously on eBay.
Well done. You've had an effect there.
This is how you get on your show.
Again.
Yeah. I know how I get my gear advertised on the internet for free. I'll put it at a ridiculous price on eBay. Rands will pick up on it.
Yep.
Everybody goes there, and then I'll drop it to the right price.
Exactly. Nothing gets past me.
Tell everybody they're saving nearly £10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a discount of £9,899. I love that.
If whoever's selling that has done that on purpose, then they're a bloody genius. That's all I can say. Because well done, they've got on twice with it. Fantastic.
Yeah, they've done it. So if you do want a PG, I think it's been sold by the way. But if you do want a PG 300, you know where not to go. What else we got? Yes, no clubs are open until we find the vaccine. And I think they're definitely trying to find. I mean, I implore everyone to get out there and buy a microscope and see if you can find the cure for coronavirus, because I think it'd be awesome if someone in the backyard found it. Imagine the news; it'd be awesome. Anyway, this one's been on before, but I think it's about time we showed it again. It's been probably about a year and a half or something since I've shown this one. I bought a new synth, and she says, "Why is it she?" I'm going to get in trouble here. Anyway, are you going to sell the old one? Ah, dear. Of course we're not.
They all look the same.
They're all pianos, aren't they?
Yeah.
Do you need another piano? Surely you don't need another piano. She thinks. It's
what does that one do that's different from all the others?
Well, that's the good thing. I always said the good thing about Eurorack is that you can sneak modules in through the front door without getting them noticed. Which I think, I honestly believe that was the original intent of them. I honestly believe that. Someone was very
And you
clever.
can never say that it does the same thing.
Yeah. How did we go with the memes FunnySide this week? Anyone have a favourite?
Oh, definitely the program.
I like the programmer, because I think there's genius at work there.
Yeah,
that you cannot make a mistake. If you wanted to sell it for $499, if it was a mistake, it would have been $49,999 or $4999. But no, they did that deliberately. Have to have done that deliberately.
that is clever, isn't it? Good.
I'm going to do that.
Sometimes I get memes and I think to myself, oh, geez, I wonder how good these are, and you just don't know until you roll with it. So anyway, we do have a bit of news now. I have to admit it's been a little bit quiet in the synth world. I mean, it's not all sort of quiet. I guess there's a bit of software, there's a bit of firmware updates. I don't really think we have to sort of show that stuff unless it's a major thing on the show, but. Let's roll the stinger for the news, and we'll see what we've got. Right, well, we have reached the news, and this one here seems quite interesting to me anyway. I didn't get a massive amount of time to study this, but a company called Xils-labs have brought out this thing called an Elmyra synth, and it's inspired by the Lyra 8. Which I think is anything should be inspired by that. That's amazing, that thing. Now, what I like about this is you can either get this as a DIY project, or you can buy it fully assembled. So that kind of fills the needs of two different types of synth people, I think, which is quite clever. It's also a digital synth, but it's got a gritty, glitchy sort of sound. And I guess they intended it to be a drone box, which is what a lot of media is reporting it to be. It's got 3 touch plates to control 3 oscillators. They can be tuned for chromatic mode for chords as well. There are triangle and square waveforms. There's also a crunchy digital delay with feedback for overdriving, which is cool. We're going to check that out in a sec. And it's got a non-resonant low-pass filter, so I haven't seen one of those for a while, which is pretty much just an EQ, isn't it, in a way? However, there is an analog bit in here too, so it's got an analog scratch distortion. I've never heard that term before, a scratch distortion. So I guess that's going to be interesting to see. Selectable envelope speeds, random mods for oscillator cycles. Let's have a watch anyway. See what this thing does. Now, videos should be lined up, ready to go. Okie dokies. It's only a short video. All right, so your eyes were not deceiving you. It is definitely a black version and a white version, so that you can get either. The other thing I liked about this, which I thought was pretty cool, is that everything that you heard just then on that video came out of that. So all the effects, you probably thought to yourself, oh, not another synth video with drowning in effects. Well, this is actually the effects on the actual unit. So that real gritchy, crazy delay, and it just went into sort of massive overdrive. I thought that was awesome. I mean, I can see drones and things coming out of this like you wouldn't believe. Anyway, $339 US, and that's the assembled version of it. So it's actually cheaper. I don't know what it is for the DIY one, but it is cheaper, obviously, because it's DIY. What do you guys think of the Elmyra? I think that's how you pronounce it. Who wants to have a comment about that?
Quite happy to
It's
jump in on
interesting.
that.
It sounds pretty much.
All right, let's go
We all
with.
want to jump in.
Let's go with Darren. We'll start at top left. Go.
I said, yeah, it looks quite nice and interesting, and it sounds like what I was doing earlier on for the chat tomorrow. That sort of glitchy, sort of very ambienty. Yeah, I like it. Quite nice, and it's what you say, $339. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's not mega money, is it?
Yeah, so it's
And
probably
it looks quite nice as well.
probably under 300 quid for you guys. So
Yeah, I think I quite like it.
good, awesome.
Somewhat
Robbie,
different.
we'll go with you next.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'm not entirely sure it's my cup of tea. sonically. I was reading the description and it says, it's a digital synth with a gritty, glitchy sound, and sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it feels like it's a cover up for it's a bit shit really. But it's I don't know. I'm old fashioned. I like notes. I like chromatic notes, and I'm not into noisy, droney type stuff. And I was listening to some of the videos, and every now and again, it would move into something that sounded, quite nice, and then it would move away into something noisy and scratchy and dirty. And I guess if that's your thing, then this is absolutely perfect. But I've been looking for a project because I need to really hone my soldering skills. Because normally I get a guy to come and do it for me because I've got short, stubby fingers, and I'm just not very good at delicate stuff. So I need to really kind of do that. And I've been looking for a project to do, and I thought, this is not bad for a build your own thing, because I think the build your own kit's €107, which is pretty reasonable. So on that side, I'm kind of tempted. On the other side, I think I'm not entirely sure that once I've built it, I'd use it. But it's nice to see.
All right.
It's different.
Well, whilst you were chatting, I had a quick look at the website, and if I can get this up, there is some prices for the DIY here. So. Panel.
Yeah, I went to the Exploding Shed link.
Yeah, panel is €20, PCB is €15, panel PCB touch set 45. So so it's probably, if you add all that up, what did you say, about €170 ish?
Exploding Shed is selling it for €179.
Yeah,
that's within the European Union. Which over here we've got to make the most of that before it all goes away at the end of December.
Yeah. And Andy, you wanted to say something about it as well. We'll go across to you.
Yeah, I've just become increasingly interested in these sort of unusual sort of devices. I mean, I love the Lyra 8, the Pulsar 23. I think these are machines which I think I would love if they were that bit cheaper. Now, this is that bit cheaper because I quite like the idea of performing sort of improvised electronic music with these sort of devices alongside sort of more conventional things. Interestingly enough, the point Robbie made about it going from nasty glitchy into something really quite nice and then moving out again, that actually does really appeal to me. I like the idea of that. Now, I suppose that's an element of control. And maybe you might never know quite where you're going to be when you turn a particular knob, whether it's going to be nice and sweet or it's going to just be nasty and gnarly. But yeah, it sounded right up my street. Actually, I was quite interested. Now I don't have any soldering skills, but like Robbie said, if this is a project which is suitable for somebody who doesn't have any to sort of cut their teeth, it might be interesting. At £170, I think I could. I think I might be interested in that. So.
Yeah, Mark in
the whole build is a
chat
through hole. So
Mark in the chat said it seems
it's all through hole. So so easier to solder then rather than.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very fantastic. All right, we shall keep going. What else we got? Okay, so this news is kind of like a rehash of something that we've already seen, but it's good news, and that is that yes, the UDO. How do you say it? Is it UDO or UDO? I don't know. Super 6
I've
anyway.
always said Udo.
UDO Super 6. I've always said UDO as well. Super 6 launched at Super Booth in 2019. We actually did cover that way back in whatever it was, May or something last year. I actually remember seeing that video, thinking, oh wow, wonder what's happened to the Super 6. Anyway, the good news is you can get it now. They are shipping. It's officially available. But why don't we refresh your memory about this? And I think, with the permission of Nick from Sonic State, we're going to have a little bit of a look at his review. We're not going to look at the whole thing, but let's do that. It's a great review, this is.
Hello, welcome to another Sonic Lab presentation. We're here with George from UDO, who's just down the road in Bristol. Last time we saw you, George, it was Sheffield, and you showed us kind of the development of the Super 6, which is pretty much on course for, well, it's being constructed now, right?
Yeah, we've started production. They're starting to sort of...
So let's get into sounds.
So you're getting a separation, effectively, in the filter as well.
So we've actually got one waveform going to one speaker, another waveform going to another, and we can decouple them and control them. So a good example is if I say let's change the waveform to something more straightforward, shall we, like just a sawtooth. So you've got effectively tremolo. It's actually an interesting way of demonstrating it. The movement between tremolo consistently varies through to pan and back to tremolo.
Right, okay.
And then through pan back to tremolo again.
Interesting.
Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everyone to go back and check out Nick's video, because Sonic State's an awesome YouTube channel, and so is Nick's reviews. Much better than what I could ever do. But I think it's good to refresh your memory about what the Super 6 is, because I actually was really gassing for one when they first announced it last year at Super Booth. And it's really good news that they're releasing it. Let's have a quick look at their website. It's $2,800 US, I believe. I don't know if I've got that wrong or right. What happened to my thing? Here it is. So here's their website. So yeah, they've still got the two different coloured versions, the black and the blue, and there's a whole bunch of information we can get into here if you want to. So just reading from that, 12-voice polyphonic binaural analog hybrid synth, and I just like the fact that they've sort of played with that stereo sphere again. I think that's really probably the big thing of synths lately is to sort of start playing with that stereo sphere with the output. But yeah, interested to get your thoughts, gentlemen, of what you think of the Super 6 and the fact that you can now get it. Is that going to be appearing in anyone's studio? Let us know in chat too. Anyone going to get the Super 6?
Well, it won't be appearing in mine because it's far too expensive. But at Synthfest last year, I did get a chance to play on it. I mean, everybody was swarming around the Hydra synth. You couldn't get near the Hydra synth, but the UDO, the UDO, you could go and play it. And I talked to I can't remember his first name, Mr. Hearn. He spoke to me about it when we were standing there, and I was quite interested. So, well, give me a demonstration. It was all on headphones, and I have to say that it sounded absolutely amazing. I absolutely loved it. It was fantastic. The sound, it's hard, it's really difficult to describe it and put it into words, and I haven't heard a single thing on YouTube anywhere that does that machine justice. Now, it was interesting because Robbie, Cy Alexander was talking about it on your show last week, and he was saying something similar, that it really, you have to hear it for yourself. It's quite something. No words can describe just how it sounds, and oddly enough, how it feels in your ears. That's if you understand what I mean by that. I thought it was one of the most amazing things I've heard in terms of polysynths for a long time. I mean, in many ways, it's just an analog polysynth, but there's that something about it which makes it sound very, very special. I think it's delightful. If I win the lottery, definitely having one.
Yeah, I think it's probably that binaural analog signal with the stereo movement, like I was saying before, and it's also got that wavetable sort of set up with the oscillator as well. Robbie, what did you think of the Super 6?
I mean, first of all, I'm just absolutely delighted that it actually came out, because I was getting really worried that somebody had come up with a really, really good synth.
Yeah,
and
indeed,
that it wasn't going to actually appear because it was getting delayed. But credit to them, they've done the job, they've got it out, and as Andrew said, it does sound pretty damned incredible. It's out of my price range, really. If I was looking for a new synth nowadays, it's going to be between the Hydra synth and this, I think, because they seem to be at the top of their game. But it's an incredible synth, and I like the fact that there's no menu diving. It's everything's there on the panel. Yeah. So you don't have to worry about flicking through different things. Everything's there, knob per function. And you can really dig in, and I guess that's what George Yeah, just what George was really going for was this, instantly accessible, intuitive, powerful sounding synthesizer, and I think he and his team have knocked it out of the park.
Oh, good. I think part of the cost, Darren, I'm going to get your comment in a sec, but part of the cost of the synth is the fact that it's actually really well built. And we talked about build qualities recently on our show, and this is something that I'm pretty big on myself. I'm kind of getting a little bit annoyed where people use the excuse, oh, it's a cheap product, so we don't have to put any quality in what we do. These guys are actually standing by the fact that it's got a FATAR keyboard with velocity aftertouch, expression and sustain. It's MPE controllable. It's robustly built. This is their own words, with solid playable controls. And if anyone who's actually tried this and touched this will say that that's actually true. So when you build a synth for it to be played on stage, that's actually a good thing. So there's a bit of where your money's going, and I think that's important to understand. Darren.
It's very gig worthy, I think.
Yeah, very gig worthy. What do you think of the Super 6?
No, I just echo what both of them said, really. The only thing I would say, if I did have the money, it's where I would put it. I'd have to get rid of one of these. So
yeah,
but yeah, I can only echo what they've said.
Yeah. So what about the fact that it's got dual stereo 24-bit digital effects, and those effects, Darren, on a hybrid FPGA. Now, that might be all hieroglyphics to your ears, but what that means is that UDO can actually update any part of that digital side and improve it whenever they want, because it's an FPGA. So, and coupled with that, you've got the analog voice architecture. So it is truly a 12-voice analog hybrid synth, isn't it, in that sense? So
yeah, it's like I say, it sounds amazing. So
beautiful. All right, so guys in the chat, let us know what you think of the Super 6 and tell us if it's on the purchase list or the wish list or whatever you want to call it. We will move on. We have got one more little bit of news, and it's kind of weird, this news, because I actually stumbled across it and no one ever told me, but apparently it was my fault. So I did a video on the Behringer 112 dual VCO module, which you can see pictured next to me there. And I mentioned part of the video that I had a bit of trouble with tuning. And I did this video a little while ago now. And it's apparently the word has started to spread, and lots of people have said, yep, he's right. There's definitely issues with the tuning. And there's a whole bunch of people that have gone out there and talked about how you can fix it. But just to sort of refresh your memory, I think I've got a video lined up for this to see if it works. 1, 2, 3. So this is the video I did, and we're going to go straight to, so we don't have to bore you with 14
everyone, today we're going to check out a new Behringer.
This is the tuning bit.
The thing I've noticed about this is the tracking of the tuning on the key step is not that great. So if you know the key step, it's got the octave lights on plus and minus. At the moment, the lights are off. When you go up, it'll flash the octave plus light. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and just check out the tuner on the bottom right-hand corner. And you see it's pretty close to being dead on. If you want, I can get that perfect for you, or perfect-ish. Let's just get this oscillator behaving properly. That's pretty good, right? So middle C, we're going to go up an octave and just keep hitting it and just watch it how it just goes out of tune. So it's gone below now. So that means it wasn't quite a full voltage happening there. I'd love to actually measure this. And you can see it's getting worse to the point now where it's...
So you can see, I mean, that was, you can kind of, I don't know if you guys sort of worked out, but I was actually kind of discovering this whilst I was filming the video, and I'm kind of like, am I being such a pleb and not doing anything right here, or is this actually really a problem? And so I thought, bugger, I'm just going to launch the video and suck it and see if it's just me being a dickhead or a new but Eurorack or whatever it is. But it actually turned out that I was actually right, and So anyway, there's articles out there now that you can go out and you can tune this thing, you can calibrate it, and it really gets quite technical. And a lot of people who are into Euro probably love this sort of stuff. Oh, let's get the soldering iron out, the multimeter out, the screwdriver out. They love that sort of stuff. But there's also a really big community of people that are into Euro, and they don't want to really have to do that. They don't want to have to pull apart the Eurorack and go into the back and calibrate it, because it can be kind of engineering sort of, it's kind of out of their sphere of knowledge. And I guess where social media has gone with this at the moment is, should Behringer have just blatantly copied technology that was like late 70s without maybe modernizing it slightly? Should they have just left it as it is? Should they have warned us? This is kind of where social media has been going with this. So, gentlemen, what do you think about this news, about the tuning of this DCO module? Anyone want to start?
I think it's shocking.
Seems like it's hardly news.
To be honest.
Yeah, let's go with
Well,
Robbie.
I just, when you started, I was imagining, when I was watching your video, I was imagining it to be slightly flat or sharp, not in the extremes where by the time you get to those top octaves, it's almost a whole semitone out of tune.
Exactly.
Now, I understand that analog gear is notorious for tuning issues, but this is 2020 for what for what that means, and this really shouldn't be happening. But I remember when I got the MS-101, there was because I got it from the guys at Midas. They sent me a little note saying that you might need to calibrate it, and they sent me the process to calibrate. And part of me is thinking, well, do I really have to do that? I mean, is that something I, as a consumer, should be having to do? But it's analog, so I kind of understand why I might need to do it. And to be fair, I've never had to do it because the 101 has been pretty sound. It's been pretty solid. But I was really interested in the System 100 modules. I actually kind of had a vision that maybe next year that might be my first little dip of my toe in the water of Eurorack. But I don't think I like to now, to be honest.
Yeah, it's definitely put a question on people's minds. That's for sure. Andy, you were going to say something about it as well.
Well, I think when it was mentioned, a few weeks ago when we talked about it, then we said that calibrating analog synths sort of goes with the territory a little bit. But I remember making a comment like, really, it should come to you out of the box, ready to go. In reality, when it's coming from a company like Behringer, you should be able to just use it. And to have that sort of level of pitch drift is not good. Now, I think they need to look at their own calibration routines in the factory, really, so that they're coming out of the factory as ready to go as they can be. Now, I think we've always got to expect that there's going to be a little bit of tweaking here and there. That sort of goes with the old analog territory, but not to that extent, I don't think.
Yeah. And Darren, you've got a fairly good knowledge of Eurorack. How do you feel about if you were to get that module?
Tuning. You see, I'd expect to be tuning something analog like that if you'd had it for quite a while, not 6 months down the line or whatever. And I know what Jamie's saying. Tuning, it's just in 2020. You just want it to work. You don't want to be messing about. I understand the analog thing, or at least tell us that the tuning's going to be pretty iffy and you're probably going to have to tune it. I mean, if you knew about it, then it would be a lot better, I think. But yeah, it's like the SH-101 there. I mean, all this time you expect it could need tuning, but not when it's a new product coming. I mean, it's not even that old, is it, really? I mean, how long have you had yours?
A month, maybe. Yeah,
exactly.
You
don't expect to be doing a radical tune on that.
Yeah.
Just out of interest, Darren, have you ever had any tuning problems with the SH-101? Has it ever gone out of tune?
Oh, it's gone ballistic. It actually needs doing now. It's absolutely all over the place.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It sounds like
in all the time that I owned one, Never had any trouble at all. Mine was, the tuning was always very, very stable compared to the Pro One. That's just, I mean, okay, now we've got another 15 years on it since I owned a Pro One, so that's 15 years of further degradation on it. So I was just wondering, it was just a curious question, because it was a noticeable difference between two analog synths. So one was stable, one wasn't.
It definitely needs some TLC and a good look at. It's squealing and all sorts.
I think
dear.
I think the other thing to remember too is I wasn't that critical when I did that video. It was more kind of like, is this supposed to do it? I was coming from I'm experiencing this right now, and I'm used to having some oscillator drift, like Robbie said. But I never really experienced that much of an oscillator change. Like, that's what I said in the video. I'd like to get the multimeter out and find out what the voltage difference is when you start changing octaves, because it's supposed to be volt per octave, and to me it just didn't measure up. And so what I ended up doing is I ended up getting a Caltrans module, which is from Clavis, which is basically it's a tuning quantizing type module where you can actually set presets and you can have oscillators go into them, just because I wanted to see, was it just a tuning thing? Was it a key step thing? Or was it the module itself? Do I need to go turn this thing around and actually calibrate it, which you can do? And I think I showed in another video where you've got the calibration pots on the back. It wouldn't be that hard. Like, it seriously wouldn't be that hard, but it's a pain. And a lot of people, like I said, aren't really in that realm. They don't feel comfortable doing that. And like Robbie said, it should come out a bit more stable. So interestingly, I've also got the competitor to that, which is the Roland 512 module. It's exactly the same clone of the original System 100M, and then people in social media are saying that apparently the Roland one does the same. I can tell you that my Roland one does not do the same. It's completely, like, I can go up and down at least 3 or 4 octaves in the Roland one. It's no problem at all. That's a Meleco made module. So I just find all of this kind of, it's like a journey of discovery. Do I expect Behringer things to work properly? Probably. I mean, you're paying it's not like a lot of money, but you're paying reasonable money. It's not like I could just drop that sort of money on the street and walk away and let it fly away in the breeze. It's not that sort of money, is it? It's kind of, you expect some sort of quality or some sort of usability out of it. And I think that's where social media have gone with it. So yeah, I thought it was an interesting topic to bring up.
People are going to jump on the whole, it's Behringer. There we go. It's cheap rubbish. Look at it. They've been discovered. They've cut corners, and this is rubbish. And so I'm hoping that they'll jump on this. I don't know how they'll fix it for existing users, other than provide them with a recalibration process like they did with the 101. You can go and download a PDF and it tells you how to do it, and you have to have a little bit of knowledge about it. But
yeah,
I've got one of these Akai Multimedia Uno synths, and every time you turn it on, it does a calibration, and then you can do that yourself manually. So why couldn't they just build a little routine into these things? If this is a known issue and it was an issue with the originals, okay, let's put an auto calibrate. So as soon as it power cycles, it does an auto calibrate, and then there's maybe just a little button that you can press to run that routine again if you find it drifting. It's not it's not something that's never been done before. So I don't know. It's put me off. I was really looking forward to that because I've been watching Alex Ball's System 100 videos and thought, if I can get something like that really cheaply in a nice little Euro rack, I'd be quite happy with that. But I'm having second thoughts now.
Yeah. Well, the other side of it too is, I guess you could you just not get that module, and there are other people that have done System 100 copies, like Frequency Central, for example. They've done one, and apparently that one's got no issues with tuning. So so watch the space with me.
Have you got any of the other oscillators? Is there an individual oscillator module?
There is
Behringer range.
There is like a module that's got a single oscillator, a single VCA, and a single filter. It's like one
So
one
it's a single
module.
voice thing, yeah.
Yeah, but they hasn't been shipped yet. So apparently it's coming. But let's not hold our breath. We were joking about Behringer stuff coming. I'll get to that in a sec. I actually wanted to kind of answer your point that you said about how will Behringer react to this, and I'll tell you how they react. So Jamie's in the chat, which is good to see him. And so I've put when that thing happened, the next day I jumped on and sent a support ticket into Behringer and said, "Hey guys, can you guys send me the calibration procedure for your VCO, because it obviously is out. Here's my video." And they're like, "Oh, we don't know yet," and gave me a real brush off fluffy answer, which was no good to me. And then probably about 3 or 4 weeks later, Jamie got his module, and he had issues with tuning on his as well, and he sent them the same support request, and they actually sent him the calibration procedure. So, maybe I'm just unlucky.
Oh, you hooked
I don't know. Jamie's better looking than me. I don't know.
Yeah. You're in their bad books now, mate. You're in their bad books.
Yeah. No,
Did Jamie send it to you, Rams?
Jamie actually went on to my video and commented on there with the actual whole calibration procedure. So it's actually in the comments if you are looking for it. Yeah.
Well done, Jamie. Very kind of you.
But speaking of Behringer, they actually do know who I am, and they have commented recently that they like my videos. So they're not angry with me. And I'm not rubbishing them or anything. I'm just reporting what I experience. It's I'm not out to get anyone. It's just my experience. And if that means everyone else is having that experience, that means it wasn't just a faulty module that I had. It was actually an issue with everyone's. So that's why we're talking about it now. It's not the first time I've had issues with things, and it's been just mine, and I've sent them back, and no problem. And I'm not here to sort of punish anyone. I think the question that we're asking is, should they have just faithfully recreated it, or should they have maybe looked at some of its shortcomings? Because that's why technology evolves. And there's definitely pros and cons with that question, isn't there? So there'll be people that said that it will say, no, if it's a faithful recreation, it has to be kind of electronically the same as what Roland brought out in the late 70s. So we expect it to be, bad tuning. But Roland's System 100s weren't. So people have got them, and they've gone onto social media and said, no, this wasn't that bad. So there's definitely
it's a fine line, isn't it?
Yeah.
If there's a characteristic to the item, that the instrument, whatever, that makes it sound special, then yes, if that particular feature or component or circuit wanders off of tune, but it's what makes the thing sound great, then you say, well, I'll take the hit, because that's the thing. But if it's just simply a tuning thing that wasn't present on the original and didn't make it special, this is very much just a voltage thing, or I don't fully understand how these modules work, then that's a bit of an own goal. If this is something that's affecting every user of this module, then that's a big own goal, and they've got to address that in some way.
Yeah. Yep. And so watch this space anyway. I will definitely do another video where I'll put the two, like I mentioned before, I've got the 512 from Roland and the 112, and I'll put them next to each other. One thing I did notice, which was kind of weird, was after I put the Behringer module through the Clavis Caltrans tuning module, is it kind of started to behave a bit better. So I don't know whether sending it that voltage irregularity sort of helped the circuitry. I don't know. I really don't know, because surface mount components.
Have you tried it with other controllers?
Yeah, obviously. I tried it with MIDI. Yeah. I tried it with a whole bunch actually. Yeah, so it wasn't. It was experiencing the same issue. It wasn't the key step, and that was initially what I thought in the video. Was it the key step causing this? And do I need to calibrate my key step? I've got 2 key steps here, and they both did the same thing. I've got other keyboards here that have got CV, and it was doing that as well. So yeah, it wasn't just that. And obviously, I don't even need to worry about that, because I know now everyone else is saying the same thing. So yeah. No, so in terms of
does it behave different?
Yeah, you go.
So I was just going to ask you, Roger, does it behave? Did you notice any difference from saying being switched on cold and having been left on for a while.
Yeah, so
the
caveat here, Andrew, is that you have to wait at least 30 minutes before you start making any sort of claims that this thing's not out of tune, because it takes about 30 minutes to just warm up properly. And also, I'll probably mention too that even with Eurorack, a module like a System 100M is susceptible to, tuning drift. But this is what you guys were saying before, that it will drift a little bit, but not like a huge semitone out. It'll drift slightly out of tune, and that's because you're going to have temperature differences in your Eurorack case, and it's different temperatures ambient in the room. You might be in the cold climate, you might be in a hot climate. You know what I mean? It's going to change that, but after 30 minutes of it letting it warm up, it should be relatively unnoticeable. It's only slight. Do you know what I mean? So we're not talking this sort of stuff. We're talking a major tuning issue here. So yeah, let's move on. Anyway, I think we've killed that. We shall move on to the next segment, which everyone loves, and that is we're going to look at some prices, some scams maybe. How scammy can we get this week? I don't know. Well, I don't know if it's scams this week, but it definitely is interesting. So these are kind of prices that you might think to yourself, wow, what the heck's going on here? A TB303 for $705 US. It's sold, by the way. I don't know if it actually sold, if they actually removed the listing. Maybe someone discovered that they should actually be selling this for a bit more than what they listed it for.
Well, this is a TB03. It's not a 303, is it?
I mean, yeah, sorry.
This is an 03 boutique.
Yeah. But anyway, there's
so what were they? They were 350, weren't they?
Is that how much are they going?
Yeah,
$349. I think they still are.
Yeah, so it's scammy. But hang on, let me just see if this is actually still live. Okay, so the listing is ended as it said in the thing, but we can check out his comments. Is anything sort of in there? This looks like a sort of.
I know that they
fairly reputable type eBay, because it's got quite a lot of graphic design and shop. So yeah, I don't know what's going on with that one. Sorry, Robbie.
I was going to say that I know that I don't know if all the boutique units were limited runs. I know some you can't get anymore, and therefore the price will go up. But I think the TB03 is still available, so you can pick that up in the shops for $349.
Yeah. So it's a bit scary.
So either this guy is trying to convince everyone that it's a 303. Which, if he was trying to do that, he should be asking for 3 or 4 times that price.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll see where that one pans out. Now, what else have we got? We've got one other. Only a couple this week. You'd like this one, Robbie?
No, I wouldn't. Not that price.
I thought you'd give Gerard a call.
That's my pseudonym.
Le Bon Coin. You can get yours from €600. A PSR 4600. And this is all written in French, but yeah, he's kind of saying,
in a very good state.
He's saying this is a rare model that was around 1990. It is 1990s, isn't it? It is kind of probably mid 90s, I guess. I can't actually remember. I haven't looked it up. But yeah, I don't know if you want to spend €600. I don't even think they were that much. I don't even think they were. I think they were like maybe €100 brand new, weren't they, when they came out these things in the 90s?
I used to work for a retailer in the 90s, 80s and 90s, and we used to sell a lot of these. And depending, I think the most expensive one was about 350. That was like, I think the PSS 780 or something. And then these ones, this has got the full size key, so it probably was a little bit more. But yeah, it's no more than a couple of hundred or so. But as Mega Mark D in the chat says, the lovely yellowed keys is aged well.
You can just see some middle-aged French bloke sort of hunched over it, smoking his Galois blonde.
Should we fair une offer? Fair un offer.
Fair enough. No, don't go anywhere near it. All those things were minging even when they were new. They were just vile. Don't go anywhere near it.
I think Yamaha really pushed that synth, that FM synth chip, didn't they? I reckon they must have.
Oh,
they must have made a billion of them and thought, how are we going to make this?
Yeah.
When are we going to get rid of these chips?
Yeah.
We've got a billion of them sitting in the
And
warehouse.
now they're all coming back.
Yeah, exactly. All right, now there is
€600.
some people actually. I don't know why, but some people actually like it when I show my graph, and it's not that one. It is that one. And yes, I have updated it. This is, and notice how reverb has literally just dropped off the planet. Unfortunately, if you're watching this reverb, can you please start putting your sales statistic back down the bottom when you look at your products, because they were actually really helpful. Now, since July, or about 30th of June, they disappeared. Since COVID anyway, they've just, so maybe the guy got sacked at Reverb because of COVID. I don't know what's going on, but anyway, we're just going to rely on eBay. But one of the things I've noticed here is there's been a little drop. Look at that. This is the SH101 used prices on eBay, and there's an average of about 3 or 4 units each month. And yes, a little drop there. Look at that. So it's popped under the $1,000 mark. In fact, it's actually heading towards the $800 US mark. Maybe you should have sold yours, Darren, back in where are we looking? September 19. That would have been a good time on eBay. Anyway, now one of the things, Robbie, I was going to do was the DX prices, because I made a claim earlier this year that I've noticed the DX prices going up. I haven't finished doing that graph yet, and I was really hoping to actually get that done because we're talking about DXs in this show. But unfortunately, I didn't have enough data to produce the graph with. It was, it was still quite early in the piece. But rudimentarily, it's definitely going up. It's not like a massive thing, like like buying a CS80 or anything like that. But it's definitely, because DX7's kind of hovered around maybe the $200-300 US for quite a while. It was quite that used price was probably around there for a long time. I think they even went lower than that, maybe 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, they did. Yeah.
But now I've noticed them starting to come up, and you're seeing sort of $500 to $700 US DX7s now, which is quite considerable. You could say it's doubled, and doubled in price, maybe tripled in some cases. So do you reckon that there'd be a reason for that? What do you think that might be, Robbie? Just in your opinion.
I don't know. So some people have actually said to me over the last few months, you've had an effect on these DX prices because you keep talking about them and buying them and stuff. And I do not think I have that much influence. However, I don't know whether it's just a cyclical thing that, now people are kind of getting a little bored of analog, and it's not, there's not so much new inventive analog stuff, so they're looking elsewhere, and it's that age-old thing of, well, we haven't heard FM for 20 years. What does that do? And, oh, look, it does this great stuff, and it sounds completely different, and people are rediscovering a new generation, are rediscovering it, and I think that might be part of it. I think the other part is that you've got manufacturers like Korg, who came out with Volca FM, and because it was a Volca, it benefited from that whole cachet of being part of this range of lovely little, very affordable boxes. And it was able to import DX7 patches, and that in turn opens up a massive library for free, basically, because you can get thousands and thousands of DX patches for you to tinker with. I think also, the fact that you've got some nice plugins nowadays. So you've got the DXED free plugin, which is great for users, owners of DX7s, because it works as a librarian and an editor as well as a plugin. Yep. You've got Arturia's DX7V as well. There's always been Native Instruments, FM7 and 8. And I think also, Yamaha themselves, a few years back, they brought out the Montage with this FMX engine, and then they broke the FMX engine out and delivered MoDX, which in my opinion is overpriced for what it is in terms of build quality, first and foremost. But that 8 operator FM engine, which was derived from the FS1R from about 21 years ago, is very, very capable. So I think there's, and now you're seeing Roland with FM engines in the TR-8S, and it seems to just have been rediscovered. And so therefore you're finding people that are saying, well, where did this come from? What were the original FM synths? And they go back, and of course the first thing that Google will throw up for them is the DX. And the DX is also not just because it's a technology that's being rediscovered, but in terms of build quality and the playability. Everyone knows that whether you love or hate the sound of FM, the DX7 keyboard is a lovely, lovely thing to play. If you're a keyboard player, it's a lovely thing to play, and so many people still have them just as controllers. They don't use the sounds; they just use the controllers. So I think there's a whole raft of things that have kind of played into this, but I think most of it is kind of this nostalgic cycle that people, well, we haven't heard that for 20 years, so we're going to bring it back. And it happened with analog, it's going to happen with digital. We've got wavetables making a comeback, and DXs and FM synthesis, and Korg in January they put the Op6 up on the wall, claimed that nobody knew anything about it, and it was this thing that they were just putting out there. And I think there's more to it than that, but that'll be interesting to see if that turns into something. But I just think it's a whole bunch of stuff. But yeah, you're right, they are slowly creeping up.
Yeah, so it might be a case of, if you do have a DX synth, and it might not be a DX7, it might be a DX something, maybe hold on to it. And Robbie, you've got a few behind you.
Yeah, make some profit. Yes. They seem to breed.
They breed, do they? Awesome. Well, that's why you're here, because I respect a lot of your knowledge on that, and I've got one DX7 and I've got a Volca FM, which is really nothing like a DX7. When you look at the awe of this thing, this is a DX7 2. This is the floppy drive edition, and the floppy drive actually still works in this, which I'm actually amazed. Drives. Yeah,
it's because they're direct drive and not belt driven.
Yes, and notice I've still got the original cartridge as well, which those things are now fetching reasonable prices too.
Man,
even just
tell me about it.
Yeah, weird stuff. So we're gonna check out some sounds and things as well. But as a nice little surprise, also, I thought people have never actually seen the original DX7 user manual, and I've got one right here next to my beer. So this is just a bit of a blast from. This is printed in the 80s, and it's just really such
when user manuals were user manuals.
This is such a beautiful manual. Seriously, this is so well done. Really is such a good manual. And
it teaches you as well as
Yeah, I seriously think if you can get your hands on a PDF of this, if you have got a DX7, this actually is a really good starting place to actually, believe it or not, there's an old-fashioned saying, RTFM. In this case, we definitely would recommend that. So, I guess kind of how we wanted to run this now is, let's say it's officially the DX segment. I thought we'd show a little bit of stuff. Robbie, you could talk about your experience with it, and we'll sort of field questions. I don't know how many people have joined us purely to ask questions about the DX7. I coined the phrase demystify the DX, and the whole reason why I said that is because a lot of people tell me that FM synthesis scares them, and I don't think it should. That's kind of my opinion, and maybe it's because a lot of people have, when they go in to describe what FM synthesis is, it might just really go above their head. Maybe they get too engineering with it, too mathematical with it, and start talking about combining sine waves together, and it just sounds like a maths lesson. Do you know what I mean? What we kind of want to try and do is explain it in a musical way to people, and how it really is quite different to analogs or subtractive synthesis. It doesn't have to be analog, digital subtractive synthesis as well, like VAs. How is it different? And jump into your chat if you're watching and you're lurking, because we do have people here. you can see Jamie's comment down below about the calibration of this module. We have, if you don't like YouTube chat, for whatever reason you don't like your name showing or whatever, you can jump onto Discord. Now, the Discord server link is in the description of this video. So just scroll down, click on it if you've got Discord, and jump into the live stream chat channel. You can see that, and it literally is, it'll just pop your comment there. One of the benefits with Discord is if you need to post links, you can do that in Discord, but YouTube won't let you unless you're a moderator. But definitely ask your question. Okay, so what do you want to start, Robbie? What do you want to kind of start with your experience, maybe? Or it's up to you.
Yeah, if you want. I mean, it's so. I guess I'm of that era. I wouldn't want to cast aspersions on the rest of the panel here, but I'm definitely of that era where I grew up. I did my teenage formative years in the 1980s, right? So music being very important as it is to most teenagers. When you're going through those life experiences, the music you're listening to becomes the soundtrack, and it's forever kind of linked with the feelings and the emotions of what you're going through. And of course, as a teenager in the early 1980s, then pop music, changing from guitars, from punk into analog synthesizers. And then in 83, this thing comes along and it sounds unlike anything else. And all of a sudden, a lot of the music I'm listening to contains these sounds. And I'm thinking, well, where's this coming from? And you see it's the DX7. So that's, kind of where the fascination started, because, you want to have the instrument that your heroes, used. And so that's kind of where the interest began. But I never really owned one until... It must have been around the mid to late 1990s when a friend of mine, we were members of a car club, and he just one day just kind of announced that he was getting rid of some keyboards, and I said, what are you getting rid of? And he said, well, it's a DX27 and a Godwin string symphony, string synthesizer. And I didn't hear the Godwin bit. I was like, oh, DX, what are you going to do with it? And he said, I'm just going to skip it. It's dead. Okay, look, don't skip it. Send it to me. I'll have a look. So he duly gave me both of these machines, and the DX27 was completely dead. I got it serviced, and it was just somebody had put the wrong voltage through the power supply and just burnt some of the traces. So they just retraced the board, and it was absolutely fine. Turn it on, get all excited, start playing it, and I was like, oh, okay, this doesn't quite sound like the DX sounds that I was familiar with. What's going on? So you research and you learn a bit, and you discover that this is missing two operators, from the FM, for the version on the DX7. So that explains why it's not as complex and rich. But then you learn that the DX27 has this bass patch called solid bass that everyone was loving to use on house records and that kind of stuff. And it just kind of sat on my rack, and it was just like, I like it because it's DX brown and green, and that looked nice, but I rarely use it. So I ended up selling it, and I kind of regret it now. But I didn't own any DX hardware until a few years ago. I'm talking just maybe 2 or 3 years ago, right, when somebody said to me in a conversation on Facebook, there was some kind of discussion about FM synthesis, and this acquaintance of mine piped up and said, oh, I've got a TX7 that it's sitting somewhere. I never use it. I don't even know if it works. Do you want it? And I said, yeah, I'll have that. And he gave it to me for free. It took about a year for him to actually find it and send it over. And I plug it in, and it's absolutely fine. It's working perfectly. So I gave it a bit of a service, put a new screen in, changed the battery, did a few bits, and it's kind of out of shot, but it's still in my rack, and it's up the top there. And then the bug just bit, and it was like another conversation on Facebook, this time with Ben Simpson. This was kind of before I kind of met Ben, and we started doing stuff with the Pro Synth Network. And he puts me in touch with a guy in Liverpool who says, I've got a DX5. Are you interested? And I'm like, well, yes, I'm interested, but I'm probably not going to be able to afford it. So we had a conversation, and we talked numbers, and I made him an offer, and he accepted. And it was, it was a very, very good offer. In my view, I came out better, I think, and that's what you see back there. And it's, again, just needs a few things servicing, and then I just started buying. And so I got DX7 2FD, which is above it. I've got the DX11. Which is above that, and then out of shot is an SY22, which Simon Alexander very generously gave to me. There's just over there on top of the Fairlight is a QX5 sequencer. There's MEP4 MIDI effects processor, which is of that era. And then just this week, literally on Monday, I think it was, a friend of mine who lives about 10 miles away said, "I've got some stuff that you might be interested in." And the very next day he posts a picture of the RX5 and the QX3 and says, "Would you like them?" And I said, "Yes, please." So it's just kind of built from there, and with all my work doing like Fairlight history and doing the seminars and kind of being known for that, I was looking for something new to get my teeth into, and this really grabbed me because the story of DX, or the X series as it was known, is pretty fascinating. It's what Yamaha did back in 1983. They'd tried them out with the GS1, the GS2. There was also a couple of small ensemble keyboards called the CE20 and the CE25, which, if you can find, are actually really cool little things. And they kind of dabbled in FM, and they got it to a point, and then 83 they dropped the DX7, and all of a sudden they're now releasing synthesizers, sequencers, drum machines, effects processors, multi-track cassette recorders, keyboard speakers, all of these things with this design and brand that made them all look like they were meant to live together and work together. And you could, as a musician, choose the synthesizers that matched your budget or your requirements. Similarly, you could choose a drum machine, and you could choose a sequencer and maybe a set of speakers or an effects processor, and it all looked like it was meant to go together. And it was like Yamaha had brought their marketing nous from hi-fi, where because back then separate hi-fi was the thing, and everything looked the same. You could build a hi-fi, stacking hi-fi with separates that all looked like they were supposed to be together. And they kind of brought that mentality to it, and that had never been done before. And I don't think it's been done again since. Certainly not at the same level as Yamaha did, and that really interests me. And so at the moment I'm researching for a couple of things to do with that whole X family thing, and it's just fascinating. This whole suite of musical tools that really took MIDI as its core and said, right, what can we do with this? How can we help musicians make great electronic music? And that's what it was. And so I've kind of become slightly obsessed.
Yeah, well, that's a good little history lesson. I think one of the things that I was always interested in is my probable first ever experience with the synthesizer was a Yamaha DX7. In terms of physical touching one, I mean, obviously I've heard them on music before that, and I knew about them, but that was my first ever touch and feel synth, and my uncle had one, and I still talk to him about it, actually. And and for me, it was kind of I think it was life-changing, and people would probably laugh at that today, thinking, how could a DX7 be life-changing? Well, this was 1983, and in 1983, you got to think to yourself, what was going on in 1983? Well, the computer that you had at home was probably either a Commodore 64 or maybe some sort of Z80 green screen thing. There wasn't a lot in those days, so the Commodore 64 was absolutely groundbreaking just in its own right. The DX7 was groundbreaking in its own right. So there was a lot of these really, really big sort of technology drops that happened in the early 80s. And a lot of musicians kind of had a gutful with the analog synths because They weren't reliable. They went out of tune. You couldn't store patches. If you did, it was very limited. There wasn't a lot of digital technology back then. And Yamaha brought this synth out that, tried to mimic some of the, the real world sounds like the flute and and
it did it better in some cases.
Yeah, and they had the ability to manipulate that sound through FM synthesis. So that's a great sort of segue, because guys, if you've got questions, like Sergio has flagged my name, it's the right way to do it, and you'll see his question here. I'm going to give this one for you, Robbie. 2 operators is easy, but how do you predict the results when you have 3 or more operators stacked? Is it just messing with the parameters?
It's like anything. When you talk about FM synthesis and you talk about its complexity, and I don't know if you can hear the church bells, the delicious irony of bells ringing when we're talking about DXs. I like that, yeah.
Quick sample.
It wasn't me just hitting. Yeah, it wasn't just me hitting a single note on the DX. So yeah, I mean, you've got this kind of complexity or perceived complexity. So let's look at why that is. If you look at traditional analog subtractive synthesis, it is, to all intents, a pretty simple, straightforward, predictable process. Whether you've got 1 oscillator or 3 oscillators, you've still got oscillators that are going through. You can change, you can modulate them with LFOs, but then you're putting them through a filter, which is generally has envelope generator and cutoff and resonance. Then you've got the amplitude envelope, and pretty much the process is the same. So if you understand one analog subtractive synth, you're going to understand probably 99% of all analog subtractive synths, give or take, because some will be doing some very unique stuff. But the basic principle is still the same. And you can take that knowledge, you can learn it once and apply it to all of these different things. Along comes a synthesizer that does something very different, or quite different. And instead of having oscillators that go into filters and so on, you have operators. And I think that also confuses people, because the words are very similar, operator, oscillator. And an operator isn't a replacement for an oscillator. An operator is actually like a mini synth voice. So it's like your Roland module that has the oscillator, the filter and the amplifier all in one little box. That's kind of what an operator is. It's something that has an oscillator that oscillates in most cases a sine wave, and then you have you can filter those, and it's kind of like its own little thing. And then you take each one of those and you arrange them into algorithms, and this is using the Yamaha method. You arrange them into these algorithms and you decide which ones are actually going to make sound and which ones are going to modulate those that are making the sound, and whether you stack more than one on top of the other, and so on and so forth. So yeah, it is fair to say, as Sergio says, 2 operators is fairly predictable, because they're either both carriers, or one's a carrier and one's a modulator. That's it. But once you start getting into 4-op, 6-op, and ultimately 8-op, then the algorithms become exponentially greater and can do different things. So really, it's just about learning a new method. Now, what also complicated things was that the user interface of a DX7 and most DX synths wasn't that intuitive, and relied on you having to flick through pages of a very small menu on the screen, trying to find these things. And then you weren't dialing stuff in. There wasn't a tactile, you weren't grabbing hold of something and just slowly turning it and hearing that sound difference. You were just kind of saying, right, I'm going to select number 7 and see what that sounds like, and then just change it around a little bit. And so it wasn't as intuitive, and it never will be as intuitive. However, if you spend time with it and you learn it, then it does become intuitive. And I'm certainly no expert in programming FM, but I know some people who are, and they can just go to a synth and initialize the DX7, and within a few seconds can say, right, I'm going to build a saw wave type sound. So I know that requires oscillator 1 and operator 1 and operator 2, and I need to feedback on this one and run that as the carrier and that as the modulator. and they get that thing and they can just do it really quickly, and they know that from there they can then start to make sounds of a particular type. And I guess it's just about learning the process, and it's not particularly intuitive to start with, because especially if you've come from an analog synth background, but practice makes perfect, and you do start. I mean, I'm nowhere near good at programming FM, and of course that's the other thing that the DX brought in, was this whole industry of presets and third-party sound designers. Before then, there was very little, if anything. And now Yamaha come out and say, here's a synth, and you can buy cartridges, or you can use cassette tapes, or in later models, floppy disks. And you can, and now companies were saying, oh, hang on a minute, we've got loads of people saying they hate programming the DX7. We don't actually mind it. We find it quite good. Let's program some sounds and we can make some money. And the industry was born, and it burgeons today. You got people like Jamie who do great stuff and sell it. And I don't think he'd be doing that if it wasn't for what the DX7 brought in, that whole kind of concept of third-party sounds.
Yeah.
So it's it's a friend of mine, Mark Doty, says that the one thing he doesn't like about FM is its unpredictability. He doesn't quite know what to expect when he changes settings. And I put that to an expert FM programmer a little while back and said, what do you think? And he said, well, yes, I understand why he thinks that, but if he spent a few months really learning, then understand what would happen, and so therefore it would not be unpredictable. So it's different, that's all.
Technically, it's probably less unpredictable than analogs.
In some cases,
because I mean it's digital. It's very stable, and you don't have things like oscillators drifting and heat differentiate on components and things like that, because everything is all kind of digital. So while you were talking, Robbie, I actually kind of did a little close up of the algorithm diagram that's on the top of my on my DX7 II here, and a lot of people say, wow, that's really, really hard. I don't even know what that means. You've got all these little squares and numbers in them and lines, and what does it mean? What? This is just like,
what does it all mean?
It's like some alien technology come to Earth, and they've taken over the world. They've introduced coronavirus, and they've given us FM synthesis. So, and the good thing about the DX is it's got those algorithms up there. And I guess all you've got to do is you've just got to understand what the flow of those little diagrams mean, don't you? And what you were saying before, it's operator and carrier. And operators generating the sound, carriers, and then you've got modulators. Yeah. So...
And you can feed back as well. So
so you can bring something back onto itself, or you can have it going through like a linear sort of thing, or you could have it. And like you're saying, the more operators you've got, they're kind of technically like voices, and you could look at it that way. It's just probably in a way, it's probably more flexible in that sense, because you've got a choice. You can either use it as a sound generating operator, or you can use it as a sound modifying operator. And I think once people get their head around that, I think it makes things a little bit easier. One of the things I liked about the Volca FM and some of the other synths that have come out in more recent time is they've got a little bit more knobs and sliders and stuff that you can muck around with these parameters, and you can start getting under the hood a bit. Whereas with the DX7, it was a bit of menu diving, and it was a bit programmy. And I think a lot of that's where it got its kind of I'll just play the presets. It got a bit of that sort of name for itself, which was good in a way, because it left the experts doing the programming, and they made money from that, and it left the players to play it. So what do you think, Robbie, is a good example of an FM synth that you've got a lot more hand-on control? What's a good example of that that's out there?
Well, I mean, one that immediately springs to mind that I'm dying to get my hands on is this new Essence FM from Codemo over in France, and it is this wonderful rack-mounted module with a touch screen, and every single operator is freely assignable. So you're not limited to the algorithms that Yamaha define in one of their synthesizers. You can take any operator and link it in any way that you want to. And there's a lot more hands-on control of that real-time control. It's both of in terms of potentiometers or knobs or whatever, and also using the touch paradigm, which we're all very much used to nowadays. So you can move faders around with your finger, and it's a beautiful thing. It's not cheap. It's about £1,200-1,300. They've had a few little kind of design issues, I should say. I mean, if you look at that picture at the top, you can see that those 5 rotaries sit quite high above the faceplate. Well, that's been sorted now, so I'm told, and they've changed a couple of other bits of the design. But it's this beautiful thing, and the sounds that they're getting out of it are incredible. Go and listen to that. So that's a great way of kind of digging in. And the Volca's cool, for kind of learning those little ins and outs, and looking at Korg's Op 6, if that ever does materialize, that seems to have a much more user-friendly interface. But of course, you can buy controllers. There's one made by a company in Holland called D-Tronics, and it's the DT7, which is kind of based on a controller from back in the 80s made by a German company called Jellinghaus. And that was something that Brian Eno really got into, because the function of every single operator was laid out on this unit. It was a huge thing, and it was quite expensive. But every single operator's controls and functions were laid out with knobs and switches. So you could manually manipulate the DX7. And I think that's what puts a lot of people off, is that you can't just grab something and wiggle things around and see what happens. There you go. And the D-Tronics DT7, I think it's about €1,200. So it's not cheap. It's got its own little processor in there, and so you can do all sorts of things. And it's a great thing. And they do something similar for the Reface DX. So it kind of bolts in and sits above the Reface, and that's a nice little touch. So I wish somebody would come out with a much more affordable controller, or build a synthesizer with that controller built in. And then I think FM might actually start broadening its horizons. But if you're looking for an older FM synthesizer, or something in the DX range, you're not going to get much that goes. I mean, the DX7, as you've got one. The Mark II FD was the last DX7. It didn't bring anything else to the game in terms of controllers. I mean, you got these 2 sliders that you could have freely assigned to various things, and so when you're playing sounds, you can actually use the sliders to open up filters or increase the harmonics of something. But I mean, and of course, if you want to really splash out, you can get a DX5 or a DX1, which do have more knobs per function than the DX7 does, particularly the DX1. But in the DX1, you're looking at £10,000 to £15,000 if you can find one of the 140 that were made. Those are the CS sliders that you can freely assign to pretty much anything that you want to in a patch. But I mean, it's kind of feast or famine. In the early stuff, you have to invest time and effort, whereas I really would love to see Korg come out with that Op 6 and have it priced at maybe $750, that kind of ballpark, and that could really open things up, particularly if it was back compatible with the DX7. In terms of patches.
I agree, and I think I don't know whose house that was, but someone had a car go.
Wasn't mine.
It was a motorbike outside mine.
Okay, it was.
No, it was definitely mine. That.
Now,
Eddie, they used the road out the back here.
I had your channel muted whilst Robbie was talking. So, did you want to say anything while I've got your audio turned on? Did you? Because I didn't hear anything.
Be nice, Andrew. Be nice.
Are you going to? Oh, actually, I am going to be nice. I am going to be nice, Robbie. Honestly, I really am, because.
Oops.
I think the first synthesizer I ever played as well was a DX7, and it really was. I think one of the key elements that needs mentioning is if you're coming to electronic keyboards from a piano background, a Juno 106, which was available at pretty much, or a Juno 60, which is available at the same time, is actually probably quite alien. It doesn't get louder when you hit it harder. You run out of notes after a while. It doesn't sound like a. It's not. You get to a DX7 and you play it, and it's really, really responsive. That is really important. That responsiveness, its musicality to a player, was immediate, and I think that had as much a part in its success as the actual sounds or its synthesis method. I mean, I think most people that bought it probably weren't bothered what its synthesis method was. It was a responsive musical instrument, and I have to say, I think that electric piano sound probably sold more DX7s than anything else.
Yeah,
and because it, in spite of it being a horrible cliche these days, that sound, it was very, very musical and very, very playable, and I think a lot of keyboard players came to it for that very reason. Okay, I really do think that. I think Robbie, your point also about if Korg can make that Op6, put a really nice keyboard on it, have enough controllers on it so that it becomes immediate, I think that they'll have a winner on their hands. I really do.
Absolutely.
So I think my dislike of FM is not really particularly its sound, because most synths can sound rubbish and great depending on how you've got it set. It was to do with the inaccessibility and the complexity of it. I mean, my own experience of the DX range is actually just the TX81Z, which just frustrated me so much. It was such a frustrating experience that the
TX81Z
slightly scarred.
That TX81Z, which is the same as the DX11. The DX11 is TX81Z with keys and a slightly expanded interface. The thing with that is that it introduced multiple waveforms in the oscillator, in the operator. So each operator, up until that point, had always been a sine wave. Now with the TX81Z and the DX11, you could choose between a sine wave, a saw wave, triangle, square wave, and there was a noise thing in there as well. And by picking and choosing different waveforms in each of the operators and then combining them, you got almost a better sound than you could with a DX in some regards. In fact, it was so good that that's kind of where Yamaha focused for the late 80s and early 90s, because you went from the TX81Z and DX11 to the V50, which was their first workstation. That was it was the same FM engine as the TX81Z, but it got PCM drum sounds in there, and it had this built-in sequencer. But it was so good, that 4-op engine, that people kind of disregarded it. Oh, well, it's 2 less than a 6-op, so it can't be as good. But it was better because it had all of those additional waveforms. But as you say, they bolted it behind this horrible interface, particularly on the module, that just rendered it really kind of difficult to anyone that wasn't prepared to persevere. And they did the same with the FS1R, which came out in the late 90s and was an 8-operator FM engine with formant shaping, which Dr. John Chowning, the guy who discovered FM or phase modulation or frequency modulation in terms of a musical thing, he said, the next obvious place for FM to go is to start using formant filters, because it will really work with it. And so they came up with this beautiful engine and then shoved it in a 1U rack mount. With no, it was just horror. It makes the most amazing sounds, but it's like, I can't get to them.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. So I wish, and I think Yamaha dropped the ball with the MoDX stroke, or the FMX engine that's in the MoDX and Montage. They dropped the ball because they didn't include the formant shaping. Had they done that, that thing would have just blown so much out of the water. It's just such an amazing, combination of FM and form and shaping.
They could still do it, Robbie. They could still do it because the whole thing is digital.
Absolutely.
There's nothing stopping them.
Yes, exactly.
And the other thing,
Korg,
did
you
this
listening?
smart morph.
I'm glad you mentioned the montage and the modex and all that, because that actually is another one where you've actually got some pretty good editing. It is easier to edit an FM sound in those new Yamaha models, and it's like,
especially with the smart morph.
Finally, Yamaha brought out a synth that's FM that you can edit a bit
So
easier.
the guy that did a lot of those sounds in the FMX engine.
Yep.
And he also worked on the new smart morph, which is kind of an AI thing. Is the same guy that has been programming FM sounds for Yamaha through the FS1R back to the SYs and to the DX7s, and he actually resurrected the DX7 II was almost an immediate failure because Roland had dropped the D50, and everyone was like, "Whoa, D50! Listen to that with all the effects; it's fantastic." And Yamaha knew that they could still cut the mustard, so to speak, but they just weren't doing it. And so Manny goes off and starts producing some sounds with this thing, goes back to his local music store, and the guy says, "Right, I'll have those, I'll buy those off you." And he starts selling his DX7 IIs with these sounds, and the word very quickly gets back to Yamaha that this guy in LA somewhere or San Francisco is selling 10 times as many DX7s than anybody else, because everywhere else is selling D50s. And why is that? Well, it's these sounds. So all it takes is one guy who really knows his stuff to go in there and start making sounds. I mean, listen to this, right? This, I don't know if you can still hear my voice, but this is Fantasia. So Fantasia was a great patch on the D50.
Yep.
But here it is. And that's just the DX, and then there was also what was there? This one, this classic
Soundtrack.
Yeah. And there's another one here. Oh yeah. So this is so much like the D50 patch, except it doesn't have the little percussive bit at the end.
Yep.
And that's digital native dance without the percussive bit at the end.
Yeah.
But he was programming these sounds that sounded like the D50, which is what everybody wanted. But of course the D50 didn't have the lovely keyboard action and the cachet of the DX behind it. So it's Sorry, I just kind of went off on one there.
Oh, that was good. I actually kind of thought to myself, should I put, because I've got a D550 rack behind me there, should I bring that into the show? And I just thought, no, it's just going to be too big a show. It's going to be like, we're going to be here for like 12 hours talking about digital synth. So I just thought we'd keep it DX, but I definitely think we could definitely do another show later on and bring the D50 stuff into it, because Roland did have to answer Yamaha, and I think if they didn't bring the D50 out, Roland probably might have got ruined. I think it was quite clever what they did with the linear synthesis, and it was like another. So they had to work out, how am I going to do it without copying, So they did. They hats off to them. That whole PCM pulse code modulation, the whole thing that they've got with this, the tiny little sample that they brought in was actually quite clever, and they're still using it. They're still using it. So it's technology that it hasn't been a throwaway sort of thing. It's not like we're using examples of some of the romplers in the past, which were just samples. But Now I've got mine. I've got mine connected as well. So if you guys want to see, Robbie's got a lot of stuff there behind him. I'll just get a close up here. He's got the new drum machines. He's got the new drum machines there. He's also got the different DXs. Yeah, he's got the different DXs. So definitely ask him if you want to hear some of it. Oh, there's the oh, look at that. Beautiful.
So top left SY22, and then you've got an RX17 and the TX7 next to that.
Yep.
DX11 and RX5, then your DX7 2FD, QX3, and then the DX5, which is my pride and joy.
Yep.
Some more Yamaha at the bottom there as well. And then over there...
Is that an RM1X down the bottom?
No, it's... oh, you mean the mixer?
Oh, is that a mixer, is that?
That's just a mixer. I did have an RM1X, I sold it, and I kind of regret doing that. And then over here, there's a QX5 sat on top of the Fairlight, which is slightly redundant at the moment. And then there's an MEP4 processor. And then in the corner, there's a nice little toy. It's the CX5M, which is the home computer that Yamaha came up with in '85, with the controller and the FM module, which is the same as a DX21, I believe. So yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff in there.
Is that working? The CX5M?
The CX5, yeah.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. I've actually got it MIDI'd up with CME's new Bluetooth MIDI, so I don't have to run cables across from there. So
that's really, really cool.
Yeah.
I mean, all I've got is just a DX7 II and a Volca FM. That's my length of FM. But we've got another one here who's got some FM stuff. Darren, you've got your modular Eurorack FM.
I was going to ask Robbie if he was thinking of getting into modular, and he likes the Yamaha because I have a DX. Well, I suppose you could call it a DX11 4 operator. Robbie, the Akimi's Castle. I think that would be a good one for you to get into modular then.
Yeah,
with an FM synth.
Yeah.
Have you heard of it?
Desperately trying to avoid.
Yeah,
I haven't. No, trying to avoid it.
Yeah.
Because it takes money away from spending it on FM, but and I haven't got space in.
Well, it's the same.
But no, I would like to.
Well, that's
it is space.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the same Yamaha chip and everything that they use in the DX.
Right.
11 DX100.
Yep.
And they're using the sound blasters, I think, as well, didn't they? The same chip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the exact same chip. I think ALM Busy Circuits bought a load of Yamaha chips, and that's what they built it with. And it's so much easier to use to explain FM synth, because when I first had a dabble in FM synth, I was probably like most people, was like, I don't get this. I can sort of understand like your Juno, but you get to an FM synth, and it's just like, you sort of grasp it, but you don't, if that makes any sense. So when you've just got all your knobs just to twiddle for your different parameters without having to mess about with anything, it's just, you throw one operator into the next operator. I think it has six algorithms, so you are limited on the algorithms, but it's 4 operator with different, you've got sine wave, saw wave, just like the DX11, but basically in a rack, and you can just turn all the knobs to make things work.
Yeah.
Which is just, it's like what you was asking for, but in a Euro rack with a Yamaha chip.
Yeah. Is it Twisted Electrons that do that Mega FM box, which uses the same, 4-op? Is it the YM2432 or something? I can't remember the name of it now. But it's the same chip that Yamaha are using.
I think it could be.
And it's a little tabletop box, and you have 2 of them, so you can get some pretty decent sounds out of that. It looks quite nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can check that out. I mean, I can bring up the page, but I just thought we've got a couple of questions that are popping in, and I don't want to ignore them because they're actually starting to scroll past. And any one of you guys could pick it up. So let's go to here. It'll pop up here. So Sergio's got another one. Klaviyo included a module in the Nord Modular G2 to stack oscillators like DX7 operators back in the 2000s. Same algorithm. So I didn't know that. So that's cool. And
No, I didn't.
John Richardson, big hello to you, John. Does Nonlinear Labs C15 count? In what context? Does it count as an FM synth? Is that what you mean? Maybe just see if you can elaborate a little bit about what do you mean by count? Does it? Yeah. So if you do want to ask questions, don't forget to put my name, because it flags it as a red mark in a chat and I can see it. Because otherwise the chat just scrolls past. But definitely,
People mentioning the SYs and that was an interesting range of, because that's what came after the DXs. And
I think the 77
it was funny because it seemed like
common, wasn't it? It was pretty common.
Yeah, the 77 and the 99, they're the ones to get because they combine AWM and AFM, which was like, their next iteration of the FM thing. Yeah. And you could layer those. And again, I was talking to Manny the other day, and he's replicating stuff that physical modelers, do. Oh, sorry, my camera's gone way out of focus. I'm just going to do that.
Yep.
And he's got the SY99 doing some incredible stuff that physical modeling synths would struggle to kind of replicate. It's an amazing kind of setup. But the confusing thing with the SYs is that you've got the 22, the 35, and then you've got the TG33. They're all vector synthesis. So that's the top there. It's FM and AWM with vector, because it was part of Dave Smith's project after Yamaha bought him out.
Yep.
And then you've got the 85, which is samples only, or PCM only. And then you've got the 77 and the 99, which can combine them. So, I know some people have bought 85s expecting them to be, these kind of FM, AWM beasts, and they're not. They're just all PCM stuff. So, it was a confusing era. I think Yamaha themselves were kind of confused because they'd ruled the roost for so long. And then everyone else was, starting to kick their backside. And, it's. I think the Moog DX and the Montage have grabbed that kind of high ground back in terms of what they're doing with FM. It's just I'm really sad about the build quality. I don't need a Montage. I don't need to spend that sort of money. And every time I've touched the Moog DX, it just feels so cheap and plasticky, and I just don't like it. So
yeah, but it's probably that sort of that market that they're aiming for. You can hear the bells again.
Yeah.
We'll have to see if we can find the bells in the DX.
I could probably knock something over these. So the DX5 is. I've got that.
I've got the temple gong. There you go.
Put my
temple gong.
I should have put my DX1. Oh, here you go.
Oh, it's quiet, that one. Oh, there we go.
That's kind of... Because the thing with the DX5 is you've got two DX7 engines, and so you can split and layer them and do all sorts of wonderful detuning and splitting stuff that you can't do with the regular DX7. Certainly not without losing polyphony. But there's some... I don't know if you can get that. I've got that going through stereo. Some of the stuff that it does with the positioning. I'm just trying to find some of the bell sounds, but I can't. But yes, it's the DX5 really is. A lot of people say, well, why DX5? Why spend all that money? It's because when you have two FM engines working together, it really does make a difference.
There's one. Which one was that? Where's my thing gone? This is one of the
classic one is the tubular bell in the DX7, which is the one that you hear at the beginning of Top Gun.
Yeah, I don't have that patch loaded, but I mean, obviously I have to get MIDI and everything going. Where we go? Back here. This. It can sound a bit FM-y, but in some of it just depends on what sort of pitch you play it. It can sound really, really, quite real, and that's kind of what a lot of people went. Imagine FM synthesis, AM, analog, subtractive, vector, sample-based, PCM, linear, and wavetable. You know what I mean? Imagine a synth with everything, and then you can just. It's like it's decoupled, so you could just go that through that. Doesn't matter. It'd just be insane, wouldn't it?
It would be great, yeah. I mean, you've got things like the EX5 that Yamaha produced, that big workstation that had it had a modelling board, it had the DX, it had
physical modelling was awesome, wasn't it?
You couldn't route one through the other. You could stack them and layer them, but it would be lovely if you could do honestly, I mean, if you think DX would be complicated, that'd be a nightmare.
That would be, yeah. You'd be locking yourself in a room for a year. The thing I liked about the DX7 too, and this is probably one of the reasons why I got this instead of the DX7, because I did have an opportunity to get a DX7. I mean, obviously, for me, I always rave on about how I'm not a huge fan of membrane buttons, so I liked this more physical sort of clicky button. Although these do need to be cleaned. This one's starting to get old, and I'm finding a few times I might have to press it on an angle or something. But yeah, the big thing I like about this is the performance mode. And you've got the voice mode select, the split, the dual, and this is something that Roland copied after Yamaha, came up with it. This is actually quite early in the terms of what digital synths could do, but this was definitely a groundbreaking thing. It's not just the FM the synth does, but that thing there where you could dual and split sounds in an FM sort of a digital sort of way. Was huge, and that's why the DX7 II is, in my opinion, is probably better than the DX7 because you've got those extra features.
Well, this is the weird thing that Yamaha, when they were dabbling with FM, started the late 70s, early 80s. I mean, they bought the technology or the license to use it in like 73. It took 10 years for them to get from buying the technology or licensing the technology to actually delivering their top of the range or the biggest selling synth. And so you have the GS1 and the GS2, which were these very expensive boutique type instruments. I mean, the GS1 is that one that looks a bit like an old harpsichord. It comes in that lovely kind of brown wooden case, and it's actually two 4-operator engines, in a split or a load. And again, it sounds amazing. It's a really lovely sounding instrument. And you would have thought that they'd have learnt the lesson there, that actually FM works better when you have two engines, two voices or two engines working together side by side. But then they come up with the DX7, which is a single engine, and that's good, it's great. But then they bring out the DX1 and the DX5, and basically they're two DX7s in boxes. And you get that wonderful richness and the way that the two engines play off each other. And they didn't seem to kind of want to explore that route any further, which was just like really weird. And then finally in '87, with the Mark II DX7, they said, okay, well, let's do that. And it does it slightly differently. You still have a single 6-op engine in the DX7, but the technology allows you to split it and then either have two voices layered or two voices split at the expense of polyphony. So in single voice mode, you have 16-note polyphony. In dual split mode, it's 8. So you kind of lose a little bit there. And they did that with the DX7 and the DX11 and the TX81Z and the DX21. But again, all at the expense of the polyphony, rather than putting two engines in, which would have been, because the DX5 and the one a 32-note polyphonic. And when you stack those two engines, you maintain that polyphony. So they kind of missed a trick, I think, there. But again, they've more than made up for it in recent years.
Yeah. Now, another thing that Robbie, they've been asking about in the chat is the computer-based options. So VST or computer-based options for DX type synths. And you did mention a few of them before. So while I've got it up, I might show a couple, and I guess maybe I'll get your opinion about these, Robbie, because I know you do love the computer side of stuff as well. So how do you feel this is the Arturia DX7V. What do you feel of this? How do you feel this is pretty accurate?
I like this. Yeah. I mean, I've got this, and it does. It simplifies the programming. So if you open up that top layer of it, you get the extra programming features that make a little bit more sense. And you've got some more immediate controls that you can map to your controllers. If you've got like a Keylab 61 like I have, then the faders and the knobs all map to all of this stuff. And this is a really nice way because you can just drag and drop and move and everything's much more intuitive, much easier to kind of understand the effect of each operator on the others, and then of course they add in some extra features that that weren't there, and of course it has built-in effects. So again, that's something that they didn't do until the SYs and later. It also mimics the original DX7 Velocity, which only ever went to, well, technically it went to 100. If you actually do a test on it, it goes a little bit beyond that, but that's because 83 they still hadn't fully finished the specs for MIDI, so they just kind of went out and said, we'll just 0 to 100. That sounds nice round number. And then everyone else decided on 128 steps and not 180. So sorry, 100. So so you can recreate that with that. But sound wise, it's it's digital, so it's not like you're relying on certain analog circuits. The only thing that would really affect the sound would be the digital to analog converters, which in the original DX7 and 5 and the 1 were all 12-bit, and then in the 7 and beyond it was 16. But they've got the sound pretty nailed down. But then so is DXED, which is completely free of charge. And not only, so I've got a fly that's really bugging me.
That's all right. Yeah.
Not only is DXED free, but it's also great for owners of the hardware because you can use it as a librarian and an editor, as well as a plugin.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see Surge, the guys behind the Surge synth, the VST, they've kind of branched DXED off and they're adding MPE support and stuff to it now. So that'll be interesting to see how that pans out. What I am really disappointed in is that nobody has ever attempted to do a Mark II DX7 VST, because that would be amazing, to have that ability in a plugin. It's all about the Mark I stuff. And if we could have the Mark II, or even you can replicate a 1.5, taking 2 instances of a DX7 and putting them together, and you get pretty much what you could do there. But what the DX7 2 added not only was the splits and the layers, but also fractional scaling, micro tuning, poly unison. All of these features that you don't get on the Mark I. If somebody could do DXED as a Mark II DX7, that would be great. I think that would be really nice.
Yeah, I think they need to, don't they? They need to try that. Now, I think the other one that was mentioned, the other one that was mentioned is the Native Instruments FM8, and I think I've got that in here. Yep, I do. So let's put that in. Give me a second. It's probably going to... This is an old Mac, so this is probably not going to like it, all this VSTs being loaded. But there is FM8. Now, the reason why it's asking me to activate and all that sort of stuff is because I've got my iLock in my other computer right now. So just ignore that.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, so what do we do? Run demo? There we go. It is actually activated. It's just, iLock's not in. I find this probably not that intuitive compared to the other two. Like, if you look at, because you're paying good money for this, right? It's part of their complete. It's part, you could buy this separate, I guess. But if you look at Dex, that's completely free. And I find, that is very intuitive to use. And I actually feel this is a really good educational way of learning, because these are your operators, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. This is really good educational way of learning about FM synthesis, in my opinion, because it's right in front of you. Everything's there. You've got little knobs,
it's all laid out.
Breakpoints, rate scaling, everything's there. EG, envelope generators, modulation sensitivity, keyboard velocity, all that stuff is right there. Even detuning, you've got ratios which are fixed or floating, and down the bottom you've got this little algorithm mapping. And I found this was probably one of the most aha moments. Playing around with Dex, reading the DX7 original DX7 manual, looking at the top cover of my DX7 as well, and then actually mucking around with this, and then all of a sudden, these algorithm maps started making sense because it's there in front of you. So it all kind of tied in nicely, and plus on top of that, you can actually create a patch in here and upload it to your DX7 as well. Which is insane. So
and this new fork of the code that Surge have started developing has actually increased the size of the GUI there.
Yeah,
because that was always my, I've got a 27-inch Mac and a big 40-inch monitor, and it's really small. But they've increased it so you can. It's not. They've only just kind of like scaled it to like 150%. They've not redesigned the graphics, so it's a little grainy. But not that we get in any way. But I'll tell you what,
it's free.
What you've got by your right arm there. Yeah, it's free, exactly.
Yeah.
What you've got by your right arm there, that is the holy grail. If you want to understand
Howard
DX and FM synthesis, get that book. Unfortunately, if you want to buy that book, you're looking at £300 to £400 roughly on the second-hand market.
Now I don't know.
Those.
I could probably show you guys. I think because this is still copyright, so I could probably show you guys a couple of pages, and it probably wouldn't upset the publisher.
There's a PDF that is available. Whether the legality of that is obviously questionable, but if you know where to look, you can find a PDF of that book, and I thoroughly recommend people do that. But it is the absolute Bible. What is probably killer in this book is the way it's laid out and the way it's explained. And so you can see he kind of shows algorithms, and then the paragraphs next to it kind of refer. You can see it's kind of it's very progressive and it is very long-winded, but you don't have. I mean, you can do exercises and like you completely treat this like a course. That's what I like about it. If you could literally do a course on FM synthesis with a DX in this. I mean, there's chapters. You just go to the chapter. If you want to learn about modulator, go to the chapter. If you want to learn about stacking and feedback loops, and he does get into that a bit of maths as well. If you really want to wet your whistle on that, if you want to, it's there. If you don't, you just skip it. But yeah, so this is kind of more like a course, and it does, it can get a little bit, engineering. See, this section here can get a bit. This is to do with envelope generators and kind of how they work. But then there's musical parts, how algorithms work across octaves and, scaling and keyboard rates and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, it's definitely a good book. I agree. Now, luckily for me, Robbie, is when I bought my DX7 II, I got it from a church who no longer wanted it, of course, and I paid probably a decent price for it as well. But it came with the original Roland, Yamaha, manual, which I showed before, and it also came with this book, and it came with a flight case. Wow!
And it was only about in your coin, it was probably only about 150 quid. So, and like I said, the floppy drives still work.
A friend of mine just bought a DX7 II. I was actually looking at it before I bought my one. It was up on Facebook Marketplace, and it was in Dumfries, which is right up in Scotland, so fair few hundred miles from where I am. It would have been a 2-day job, 1 day to go up and another to come down. And he only wanted like £450, I think it was, and it was a DX7 so it didn't have the floppy drive, but it came with that, the manual. It came with the Howard Massey book with the flexi disc examples in there as well. It came with the case and the stand. It came with the Grey Matter E board, the expansion board that came out, and it was just. It had the Fukada book as well, which is this, Japanese translated book, and the books themselves. If you then took them and sold them on eBay, you would have got your money back and had more in your pocket after buying that DX7, which is crazy. The actual books themselves, the physical books. £300-400 each, and it's just bonkers. Yeah,
and I mean, like you're saying, there's. I'm old school. I'm an old fart, but the physical book has always been something that I would prefer.
I love a book. Love a good book.
I've got iPads. I've got bloody Amazon. What do you call them? Kindles, all this sort of stuff, and books still for me. Nothing beats a physical manual, especially a well-written and authored user manual. None of this bloody boutique shit that you like reading a friggin'
those kind of
Sunday Times on the train
paper things. Oh, that's terrible. I didn't think anything could get worse than having a PDF on a CD-ROM as you used to get back in the day with certain synths. But then somebody came out with a multi-fold paper sheet, which I just
There's just no way. But yeah, I've got those Howard Massey books as PDFs on my mobile phone or on my laptop. But like you say, having the book, I've got a stack down there of manuals and all sorts of things, and you just can't beat having that book, having it next to you on the synthesizer. Which button I've got to press? It's that one, and it's just so much easier. And yeah, I'm old.
Yeah, I'm old too. Sorry for all the young people there are thinking, I just use a Microsoft Surface. What are you talking about? Although, look,
they're just waiting for the Audible version.
Audible, yeah. I will admit though, I am kind of. There are some examples where I do like having the, like the iPad with the PDF on the iPad, so that you can use your finger and scroll. And one of the examples with that is I did a video last year or whatever it was, where I repaired the screen on my Korg M3, and the only way for me to do that was to literally have the iPad at the back, where all the electronics was down on the desk, iPad sort of standing up behind it all, electronics on it. And then I could work with screwdrivers and soldering irons and multimeters and things like that, and literally just go back and scroll up and down to the bit that I needed to in the technical manual. That was literally a godsend. If I had a manual, it would have taken up more real estate in the desk, and it was hard enough. Big synth, sometimes definitely not knocking the iPad, but old school manuals for synth, love them. And I think that it's almost like a thing, isn't it? Like you open it up and it's a vintage. It's getting vintage, right? It's a vintage synth. These manuals are written in that era as well, so it's kind of like an experience just with that itself. You're reading what they wrote back in the day, so that the influence.
And those manuals are, they're just so good. My former colleague who's no longer with us used to write the manuals for Akai's, and the 6000 manual, a few others before that, and he also designed the user interfaces for Akai, so the MPCs and the samplers. But he wrote the manuals as if they were a training guide, but he did it with humour, and he did it with a command of the language that made you feel comfortable, and not that you weren't being overawed with all the wonderful stuff. He would use anecdotal kind of quotes about, what happens when you do this? Well, instead of saying, the frequency of this is affected by the modulation of that, he'd just say, it would sound out of this world. It would sound like a fart coming through a trumpet, or and he would use that, and you just felt comfortable reading this, and he was talking to you at your level, and you just don't get that anymore with any kind of synthesizer. Or any, not just synthesizers, any kind of modern technology. Now, there's no instruction book. There's a quick start guide, or like you say, the Sunday Times, and even that, the Sunday Times, only the bit in the top left-hand corner is the English one, and then everything else is all the other languages that I don't need. And
the bit you want to read is in the fold. Where it's fold. And, No, I was just thinking.
Absolutely.
I reckon one of the earliest manuals that was really, really well done was the ARP Odyssey. So the original, back in the early 70s, the ARP Odyssey manual, because what they actually wrote was, this is how you make a flute sound. This is how you make and it was like such a clever way of writing a synthesizer manual. And I like how Korg,
making things relatable.
Yeah, and I like how Korg, when they remade the ARP Odyssey, they actually reprinted, that manual word for word, and exactly the same. Which was good. Notice that Behringer didn't do that. So
Behringer don't put manuals in anything.
Yeah,
and when they do, they put wrong detail. My MS 101 manual, when it goes, you get to the back page with the technical specification. It's the tech spec for, is it the DeepMind? I think.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. Crazy, isn't it? And the box. Do you remember how I showed you guys the boxes? The cover of the boxes with those Eurorate modules. So the VCA was a VCF. Instead of a VCA, put it on the box. Just get it right. Anyway, now, guys, do you guys want to, do you want us to show stuff? I don't know. It's your show. I'm just here as a host in a way. Just steering the ship. What do you guys want us to do with the DXs? Because both Robbie's got more than me. I'm jealous, but we've got them here. I've also got the VST stuff on the Mac screen there. Robbie's got, dxshop.com behind him. How about maybe we should look at the new drum machines you got, because they really are cool.
I mean, I've yet to really kind of dig in properly to the RX5, but I mean, it was so the 11 and the 15 were the ones that they originally came out with, and then these were kind of their second generation, so they had better samples in there, more samples. They also had Waveron cartridges that you could expand the voices, so they're quite rare. Luckily, when I bought this, I got the jazz one and the original one. But they've got great little features like instant reverse. So if you want a reverse cymbal, and it's just instant, and you can do that live as the sequence is playing. But it's
that's incredible. Hey,
it doesn't sound it's just a great. The other thing is you can play musical notes with it, so everything can be assigned musical notes. You can use it as a sequencer if you want to.
Yeah. Just do that reverse cymbal again. I seriously just had a trip down memory lane. Oh, guys, you seriously would have heard that sound before. That reverse cymbal sound has to be everywhere. How old are these, Robbie? Are these late 80s?
RX5 was 87. It was about the same time as the DX.
About the DX7 too, yeah.
7.2, yeah.
Yep.
I got that. And the QX3 is the one that I really want to learn and get into. I mean, that's one of those kind of proper old-fashioned sequences that with a typewriter-style keyboard,
yep.
With all the note divisions and everything. But what I've learned is an incredibly capable machine. And then even at the top there, you got the RX17, which is just a much smaller cut down version. They're quite quite cool. Unfortunately, it hasn't got individual outputs like the RX5, but it's not a bad thing. But
they're hard to get now too.
The RX,
they're actually hard to get.
Yeah, I mean certainly the RX5s are more thin on the ground. I really want to get an RX15, which was the kind of flagship, their first flagship drum machine back in '85, I think it was, which had 12-bit really compressed samples, so it has a kind of character. I wouldn't mind getting the QX1, which was their first proper sequencer, and that uses the 5 1/4-inch floppies as opposed to the 3.5.
That's gone back.
It doesn't. And it doesn't. The operating system is on the floppy as well, so it's always reading the floppy drive. And of course, 5 1/4-inch floppy drives are quite noisy, so it's always accessing the drive to do stuff because it doesn't hold any of the operating system in memory. Unlike this, where it's all there. But
you can get 5 1/4.
And the other impressive
emulators. So there's Gotek do both a 3.5 and a 5 1/4 emulator, and that might.
Yes.
There's people that have put Goteks in the DX7 the FD version, because they don't want to run the old. What they've done is they've taken out the floppy drive to preserve it, wrapped it up in cotton wool type thing, sealed it and put it away somewhere safe, and they've put the Gotek in because they don't want to wreck their floppy drives. And then you can just, I don't know why you do it, because you can just use MIDI, but it's silly, really.
Exactly, and the drives on these were direct drive; they weren't belt driven, so they are far less prone to failure and stuff than the regular, the 3.5-inch you get in a computer.
The heads that wear out on them, and sometimes the motors, but if the motor wears out, you can actually replace it. But the heads are the things that wear out on them.
But isn't it wonderful that we have these options? We got SD cards in the Fairlight,
exactly.
And it's just brilliant. My S6000 has a SCSI to SD drive that I can access on my computer. I can mount that drive whilst it's still mounted on the S6000, so I can be accessing files from both machines, transferring data, and it's 64 gig of storage on there. I'm never going to need anything more than that on there. So it's brilliant that this technology exists.
Well, we're definitely going to have to get you back at some stage in the future to talk about Fairlight, because I mean it's another one of my loves. I actually don't have a Fairlight, so the only thing closest for me to Fairlight is.
Do you want one?
Yeah, sure. Talk to me afterwards.
I've got a few for sale.
I'm absolutely not joking when I say yeah, sure. But yeah, there's a guy in Australia that you probably have seen recently on some of the forums who is working with Peter, and he's got one of his prototype Fairlights that he's working on, and there's been some live streams with that, which I found really, really enjoyable.
Peter wanted... Basically, Peter's showed me this crate. If anybody doesn't know, Peter Wilk is the guy that I work with on these things. Yeah, and he's got this crate of channel cards and various things that all need repairing.
Yeah.
And Peter just doesn't have the time or the inclination, I don't think. So he was looking for somebody local, i.e. in Australia, and David is not too far away.
Yeah, he lives in Adelaide.
I mean, I've got I've got a kind of a test rig that's a little similar to what David's got, but I've also got the systems downstairs and the one up here. And so what we've supplied David with is just like a single voice card machine, so he can only do 2 voices. But it's enough to actually get up and running and go and start exploring some of the sounds, and then he's doing all the kind of the heavy duty soldering stuff for us, which will then enable us to keep these things going as long as possible.
And he's got some knowledge too, which is handy, because the more people that are still kind of not too old and wanting to retire type thing, that's still interested in this. And we talked about this before, like what was my first synth that I ever touched was a DX7. Actually, one of the most, because I was always into computers as a kid, I had a Commodore 64, blah, blah, blah. My mum used to go to uni. She was like an adult university student, so she was a bit older. But she used to drag me down there as a kid, and a teenager, and I used to play with a Fairlight down at uni. And
right.
And like the lecturer would come in and go, "Do you know how to get this thing working?" Because I'm just a kid, right? Probably pimply faced kid knows how to use a computer. That sort of too many Hollywood movies type thing. And I go, "I'll give it a go." And I was literally light pen mucking around and making sounds out of this thing. And the lecturer's looking at me going, "How the hell do you kids work this stuff out so quickly?" It was me in the early 80s with a Fairlight. It was crazy. But mate, I've got such good memories from that, and that's sort of that's probably what fueled the rest of my life, honestly. So I'd love to get my hands on one.
I'd
like
like
the wife would be happy.
Have you muted me again, Rons?
No, you're talking. I haven't muted you.
I was going to say, I'd just like to mention 2 exercises in irony, which have gone past, which have gone unmentioned, and I really think should. I think it's delightful that Robbie's got a QX5 sequencer sitting on top of his Fairlight. And I also think it's delightfully ironic that he will be shipping a Fairlight back to Australia for you. They just tickle me down, both of those things.
Well, they have to come home.
We've got some in
stage.
Australia.
They have to come home at some stage.
We've got quite a few in Australia and Sydney that Peter's got that he's working on various ones. But I'm just kind of like the UK/European division of Peter. I just his eyes and ears, and his hands when it comes to these things. So it's. I pinch myself every time I look at that thing in the corner, or I go downstairs into the garage where I've got, I think, about 3 at the moment, all kind of in various states of repair. I'm like, how did this happen? Because like 10 years ago, if you'd have said to me, you'll have like 3 or 4 Fairlights in your possession. I mean, you don't own them, but you just like play. I can walk down and play with these things at any time. I'd have just said, "Get out of here! No way." And yet here I am. So it kind of gives me hope that
I'll tell you what, Robbie,
they get a DX1 or something.
I'll swap you one of those things that are stuck in your garage for one of the things that are stuck in my garage, which is an old Sun Microsystems server. They don't even exist anymore. Sun Microsystems.
No, quite.
But yeah, we've all got.
What's the going rate for a restored Fairlight, give or take? Because I'm sure there must be differences, but
give or take, yeah. Well, so the thing is, when we restore one, we try and max it out as much as possible, unless of course the prospective buyer wants a certain kind of configuration. So to kind of the average price for a fully restored Series 3 would be around 9,750 US, so just shy of 10 grand US dollars. That's what Peter sells them for. And that comes with SD card drive replacements. It comes with the 32 meg of RAM, which I'm talking Series 3s here, 32 meg of RAM, which was never kind of an option originally until much later in the 90s. That will come with full 16 voices, all calibrated and all matched to output cards. It'll come with a VGA output, so you can connect a VGA monitor, and just so basically everything in there. Now, of course, you might just want, as we have sold in the past, you might just want the mainframe, because on the Series 3, you've got full MIDI capability. You might not want the big controller, the big keyboard. That Series 2 is actually running a little box. I know you can see it. Just let me put my finger. No, come back. About there. There's a little box with a red front on it, and that allows you to use USB with any Fairlight, with a Series 2 or a Series 3. So I don't actually have on my Series 2 the original alphanumeric keyboard, the one that was made out of metal that looked like it come out of the space shuttle. I don't have that, so I've got a USB keyboard which works just perfectly fine. It does everything you need it to do. Don't have the light pen, you see, because I don't have the monitor, but I don't need it because I can use a mouse, a USB mouse. Yeah. So those little boxes were designed by an absolute genius in America called Joe Britt, who is one of the nicest guys you could ever meet, and also his brain the size of a planet. And he made these little boxes to replicate the communication between keyboards and control devices, so that we can use modern stuff. So if you want to throw a couple of hundred on top of the price, Series 2s and 1s and so on, they're more rare because they were more delicate, and the drives often failed and people just left them to kind of rot, unfortunately. So they're more rare, and again you'd probably be looking at the same price, particularly for a Series 2X, which is what that is. But it all depends on the condition and specification, and but that's kind of ballpark figure. I mean, there's a guy on eBay at the moment selling a Series 2X for about 15,000 US, which is far too much, particularly for the condition it's in. It's far too much.
Well, I'm glad that they're still the thing of dreams. Actually, I'm still glad that they command a high price, and that they're still something that I can dream about. I'll keep one teenage fantasy alive at least.
Yeah, you can.
That and Linda Lusardi, eh?
Don't forget, you can always when you get your computer fixed up, Andy, you can always get that. What was that software called again? The emulator one, Quas something. I don't know. I'm thinking of something else. There's a weird name for it. I did show it like a while ago.
Oh, Quasar Beach.
Quasar Beach. That's it. So obviously it's not going to have the hardware element that the Fairlight will sound different. It'll just be completely just whatever your computer sound card is, and it literally, he actually admits this. It just literally plays the sample directly through your computer sound card. So there's a lot of Fairlight-ish hardware treatment of the audio that's missing in that. But if you just want to have a little sort of exploration in the Fairlight world, it's a good way to start. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, what Jean-Luc has done with that application is revealed to people the very simplistic yet kind of unintuitive and complicated operating system that the Fairlight was running. It is old-fashioned. You kind of have to unlearn your process to go through it. It's not like you just pick a sample and then it auto maps it across the keyboard and does all this kind of fancy stuff. So it has opened many people's eyes, and it's incredible to see what people are doing with it. No, it doesn't have the character of the hardware, because the hardware did lots of special things, either by design or by accident, to make the Fairlight sound the way it sounded. but it really has kind of opened up that kind of world of usage. And I know he's working, because I consulted with him on that. He came to me and said, what does this do? How does that work? Does this look much like the originals? Right. And he's got other things planned to kind of expand it. But it's free, it's kind of a name your price thing if you want to, and it really does open up. And he's done that thing that we were talking about earlier. It's kind of he's added some stuff to it to make it do things you couldn't do before. And of course, as you can see, the bit that you're scrolling past now, it can read all sorts of different files and libraries. So that's really interesting.
That makes it more modern.
So it's good fun. Yeah, it's good fun, and
these are all screenshots, as you can see. These are actually
W30, brilliant.
Yeah, and emulator. That was pretty big. A lot of people were raving about how you could read it. So because there's emulator stuff you can download, like zip files of the emulator, and no one can play them because a lot of the emulators are broken. And now you can bring them into this, and it just literally converts it. So there's.
Can I ask Robbie another question here? Actually, I see behind him on the other wall, not his Yamaha wall. He's got an Emax 2, I think it is.
Yes.
Are the Emax 2 are all the emulators in the same format? Because in this sort of silver box behind me here, I've got an ESI 4000, which is still working perfectly well. Is that a compatible thing?
So emulator compatibility is pretty good. So with each kind of new machine, it was able to read the older stuff quite easily. So with the Emax, it can convert stuff, but also there's a great program out there that you can run. What's it called now? I can't remember the name. EMXP. That is just like a very simple text-based Windows application that allows you to read emulator files in, whether it's emulator 1, 2, Emax 1 or E3, E4, I think. I don't know if it does the 4000, but you can, you can convert and get stuff into there. I mean, I only bought that Emax 2 so that I could play the emulator 2 library, because that's the famous kind of emulator library, and that's only the 1 meg version. I should have done my research better before I bought it, but it was going for such a steal that I just drove down to the guy and bought it. Unfortunately, the 1 meg version, which is what that is, cannot be upgraded. You have to have a 2 meg version or above to upgrade the memory size. So I'm kind of limited. But then I only bought it to play emulator 2 samples, which are all half meg. So it doesn't really struggle. But yeah, it's really, I love that thing. I really do. It's so simple to use and so effective. Really like it.
So, Robbie, are you literally just like fanging to reproduce Violator in your studio there or something, are you? Is that what you want to do, mate?
yeah, I'd love to. I mean, it's
there was a lot of modular. There was a lot of Moog modular on Violator.
Oh yeah, but they sampled a lot of it.
Just Emax.
No, it wasn't just but they sampled a lot of it. So it was kind of
Flood is a big modular guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, Flood's a big modular guy, and he brought a lot of that to bear. But yes, I mean, when they went out on the road, everything just went into originally emulator 2s and then Emaxes.
Yep.
Which, because Alan Wilder sold his off a little while back.
But
yeah, the only one of the reasons that I wanted an emulator or an EMU sampler was Depeche Mode. Because huge fanboy. So.
And the next question is: just do you have the drum machine that they used in it? Now mental blank again. The HD16, HR16.
Well, the Alesis.
Alesis, yeah. Is it?
No, I don't have an HR16. No,
I thought it was
an HR, I think.
And it's got that weird sounding open hat that they used in that track. What was it? Is it Personal Jesus or is it the other one? Halo, isn't it? It's in Halo.
Was it? Yeah.
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 And it's
I don't have one of those.
I've
got samples, but I don't.
Maybe that's the next one. The next purchase.
Beeping.
Yeah. Yeah.
SR16.
I do.
That's one of the things that I it's one of my drivers when I buy stuff is, does it have a nostalgic meaning to me? You know, like the DXs have a very nostalgic meaning. The Fairlight does, the Emu does. Yeah. You know, it's what's he got there?
Right a bit, Darren.
There you go.
Yeah, there it is.
That's the SR16.
Yeah. Yeah. So I, there has to be an element of nostalgia, I think, with a lot of my acquisitions. It's like when I bought my S6000, the factory. I put the factory disc in, and straight away there was a bunch of samples that were used by Mike Skinner of the Streets on original Pirate material, which I think is just a fantastic album. And instantly I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I can recreate the Streets on my S6000. There's got to be some kind of nostalgia thing. Yes, and the 101. When I was like 12 or 13, I was reading through 1-2 Testing or something, whatever magazine it was at the time. Yeah. And there's the Roland advert with the kid with the 101 slung over his shoulder. And I thought, that's me. That's what I've got to have. I've got to have. I've been obsessed with the SH101. Yeah. Never been able to afford one, you know. And then lo and behold, Behringer come out and bring that thing out. So it was like, yep, got to have that. And funnily enough, because I got that, Simon Alexander then lends me his SH101. So for a few weeks, I'm here in my bedroom with my door closed, and I'm 12 years old again with this thing strapped over my shoulder, miming to some crap, just having fun with this thing. It's great.
Just have a look at the top right-hand corner of Darren's. Yeah. Now you've got
Darren, have you got the mod grip, Darren?
I don't think he does.
No. I didn't get the mod grip, no. I only got it for...
Does your... I had the mod grip on mine, and I never ever used it.
Stay on, Darren, because Robbie's got a question for you.
Just stand there and look cool. Yeah, I was just say, Darren, your 101, has it bowed? So if you lay it flat on a desk, does it kind of arch, the base of it? Does it bow a little bit? Because that's one thing I noticed with Simon's, and Simon's is in absolute condition, and... I never really kind of realised how cheap and plasticky they are until I,
it hasn't bowed, no.
The bottom was metal.
I'll tell you what has bowed is me. Bottom's metal. It's not bowed, no.
Yeah, but it's quite a thin thing. But no, because I noticed at the front of it, the underside at the front had just kind of bowed ever so slightly. I didn't know whether that was a common thing with 101s or not, but...
No, it's not bowed. I'll tell you what has bowed, though, is me Arturia Beatstep Pro.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
That's bowed. Yeah.
Oh,
and I believe that quite a lot of people have had them bowed as well. Yeah.
Blimey, how have you done that?
No one had.
Good.
Robbie, you've got one of these, haven't you?
No.
Well, what's that?
You've got, in my hand, one of these. You've got an MS-101, don't you?
I can't see what's in your hand. I can only see Darren at the moment.
So I'm looking at the wrong screen. That's me getting tired. You've got one of these.
Yes. Yeah, that's what I've got. Yeah.
Is yours an MS-1 or an MS-101?
No, it's a 101. It's a pre-prod model that they sent over from Midas in Manchester, and I did the review, and they very graciously allowed me to keep it, which was very nice of them.
All right, Darren wants to show the bowing of the...
I don't think you can see it, but it's... I can't...
Are you sure the foot hasn't just fallen off?
Maybe his house is bowed.
No, I believe... I believe a few of the earlier models have bowed because it's. I can't show you, but it literally bows like that, very slightly.
Oh, it's like that. It's like concave.
I can't.
It's funny with that Arturia.
I can't show you on camera.
Just runs. Yeah, you can't really see it, can you?
Yeah, it's a run of them because.
But Arturia have this thing.
I was asking the shop. I was asking the shop when I went in. Has your Beatstep Pro bowed? And I went, funny enough, it has. He says, because they've had a few people coming back with them bowed. I says, I wasn't particularly bothered, but yeah, so presumably a few have.
I've got to check mine now. Well,
I can say mine's not. Mine's the black one, which comes later, though, so I don't know. It looks It's,
we're all gonna
I've
be
never
checking
heard
out.
about it, Boeing. So
We're all gonna be checking out BeatStep Pros. Anyway, guys, I think we're gonna have to probably wrap it up. I mean, Robbie, we could talk to you for days. I reckon. Seriously,
I'm always here.
The amount of knowledge you've got in your head, mate, is incredible. And it's only because I'm just being conscious about how long the stream's been going for. It's been going for 2 hours and 40 something minutes. And there's people.
You do realise that the main show is now that long.
we
You didn't
never
do a main
actually
show cut off there.
we didn't do a cut off. I was just too engrossed. I don't care. We just live life by the seat of our pants. That's what we do here.
It was really interesting just sitting, listening to you talk about all that detail about the DX stuff there, Robbie, in particular about the using of it. I mean, one thing I'm definitely going to do this week is I'm going to load up DXZ and I'm going to play about with it because I never really have, and I am going to make a concerted effort to understand better how FM works. That's my promise to you. So next time we meet up on here, I'll hopefully know an awful lot more about it. And I thank you for the inspiration, really, and the kick up the bum.
Well, you can download. Like if you go to the DXZ page, there's a link to download I think it's called DXZ Cart 1.0 or something, and it's just like a really well curated collection of all those free sounds. There's thousands on there. And if you start just going through those and picking the ones that you like, and then with the DXZ GUI, you can see how this stuff works, and you can then reverse engineer and then apply that knowledge to your own kind of initial patches. So it's a really good way of learning. It's a great tool, and it doesn't cost a penny.
Exactly. It's definitely. I mean,
he's got a bold one.
I started with my Volca FM series where I was showcasing the unofficial firmware that Pagan did on Reddit, and I was really, really big on showing the DEX side of it because a lot of people would come to me and ask me questions about, how do I patch storage? How do I manage this? How do I do that? How do I get DX7 patches on? It just became, just get DEXed. Seriously, get a Volca FM if you want, something hardware-wise that you can take without having to lug your computer around. If you haven't got that, that's probably a good start, and then get DEXed, and then literally that's your beginning of simple FM, and then you'll start getting the bug. You really will, and then you will start thinking to yourself, I want to get a DX7, I want to get all the stuff that Robbie's got behind him. I want to be like Robbie. That's what you do. No.
I've got a TX81Z coming in hopefully very soon. And I keep saying no more.
Yeah.
But I want that because you can pair them up. That's another good thing about the 81Z and the DX11. You can pair them up and double your polyphony because it does the I forget what they call it now, the odd even mode, and it splits everything out. So makes it even better.
Yep. Anyway, a massive big thank you, Robbie, and obviously, also a big thank you to Darren and Andrew as always. But yeah, it's been awesome having you, and I hope. I mean, we didn't really do a lot of musical demos. I think my channel is a bit more known for not doing that sort of
who's
stuff
there?
as much. Yeah, but sounds a bit like that. Sounds a bit like that alarm clock.
Can I make a recommendation
on the iPhone?
I just thought I was going to mention this earlier. Anybody that's, and Andrew, you can do this as well. Anybody that's looking to learn more about FM synthesis from a programming level, go and check out a guy called Madfame, MADFAME.
Yes.
He's on YouTube.
Okay.
He also has a Patreon page. And if you subscribe to the Patreon, you get lots of bonus stuff. But he has a huge number of videos on YouTube that are free, and he shows you how to build up a sound. And then you can download it as a sysx file if you want to kind of inspect it that way. But you can program this yourself on a DX7. So he's really good. And then there's another guy that runs a Patreon page called Reverb Machine, and he does a lot of track breakdowns. And he did a whole feature on FM, and he created some patches like the Tina Turner, What's Love Got to Do with It? Pretty much every patch is there. Some Tears for Fears stuff. And again, if you subscribe on his Patreon page, you get all the patch files, all the MIDI files and everything else. But there's some really, really great stuff about FM on Madfame and Reverb Machine. So check those guys out.
Thank you very much for those tips. Well,
Thanks for the tips.
while you're actually doing a lot of interwebbing stuff, don't forget too that Robbie has his show, and that's next. It was tomorrow, isn't it? Tomorrow at about 8?
Tomorrow.
Yeah, 8 o'clock
8
UK
p.m.
time.
UK time. Yep, so that's 3 p.m. East Coast, midday on the West, and
So I will-
stupid o'clock in the morning for you guys.
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll link to both your YouTube channels, Robbie, your File Muso one, as well
Thank
as
you.
the ProSynth Network one as well. And also, if you haven't done that, go onto Facebook and join the ProSynth Network group, which is run by Robbie and a few other decent blokes. And I will tell you this: it's actually probably one of the best Facebook groups for synths.
It's a good group.
Sensible. Yeah. It's a sensible group.
Yeah.
Because not all of them are.
And one more plug. Can I get one more plug?
Absolutely.
SOS Sound on Sound podcasts.
Yes.
Subscribe. They're free. I've got a couple on there at the moment. There's some really great stuff on there, and I've got a new one that's very FM related. I can't say any more than that. Coming out in hopefully in a couple of weeks' time.
Well, if you're
Are they on the Sound on Sound page, Robbie?
Yeah, if you go to soundonsound.com and then on the top there's a button SOS Podcasts. But if you go to any of the major and all of the minor podcast services, we're across all of them. So Apple, Google, Spotify, Deezer, all of them. We're across all of those, and YouTube, YouTube as well. Now we've started putting the podcasts on YouTube.
Oh, good.
With pictures and stuff.
Yeah, I've actually definitely recommend watching or listening to those because I listened to a few of them before, and also your articles have been pretty good as well. So well done for that. Awesome.
No, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And on that note, I think Marshall's just turned up saying, "Have I turned up right at the end?" Yes, you have. I'm about to go to bed because it's like it's almost 1 a.m. here in
Marshall.
Australia. And, you know, we had Marshall on a couple of weeks ago, and it was awesome having him. So it was last week, sorry.
Yeah, we had him on as well.
Yeah, it
Good
was
bloke.
brilliant, and we'll definitely get Marshall back for sure. And that's the thing too. If you're sitting there thinking to yourself, "I'd love to be one of these gentlemen or ladies, whoever is in one of these squares or rectangles here," you can just hit me up. My socials are all connected into the About page on my YouTube channel. And don't forget, I do have a Patreon. This does sound like a bit of a begging thing. I don't want it to sound like that, but Patreon's there to help me fund some of the expenses I've got running camera equipment and lighting and that. Robbie's got the same issue with his channel. And eventually you're going to end up funding a whole bunch of YouTubers. But so what? If that's what entertains you and that's what you get out of it, then a few dollars for a coffee is not going to hurt. So do check out that. And if you can't do that, don't forget to hit like. That's always the minimum you should do if you've sat here and enjoyed us for the last couple of hours. Hit the like button. Believe it or not, YouTubers say it all the time. It is absolutely imperative that likes happen. It's just the way their crappy algorithm works. And it gets it in front of people. So that's why we ask. It's not because we have some sort of narcissistic agenda or anything like that. It's purely for the algorithm.
Some of us do.
So anyway, on that note,
and I have an FM track coming out tomorrow. Oh.
Wow, there you go. Don't forget to check out Darren's channel tomorrow at 4:00 because that's when he launches his track. And also, if you do get a chance, there will be links to all these people and videos and everything that I talked about and we all talked about in this massive, big, long show that we did today in the description below once I get off my butt and re-edit it because it's going to be a big job. But let me have about 8 hours sleep because tomorrow in Australia is Father's Day. So you guys would have to wait 6 months before you get your Father's Day. But yeah, I actually get to have a nice day tomorrow where I don't have to do things like dishes and stuff like that. I'm sure I'll end up doing the dishes though, but you know what I mean. Father's Day is a nice day for me. Kids
like the rest of you, I'm not a father, so it just passes me by. I remember to send my dad a card though and buy him a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah, make sure. So if you're living in Australia and still watching this, I don't know what you're doing up this so late, but anyway, happy Father's Day for anyone who's in Australia, and happy Father's Day anyway to all the fathers. So thanks everyone for watching. We're going to say goodbye. So see you later, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
You're a rack next
Bye-bye.
week. You're a rack.
Hooray.